Personnel to order. Order of business is to accept minutes from January 12th. Jay and Kathy, all in favor?
Aye.
Those carried. Staffing requests. Which one do you want to start with?
I can just go straight down. These
Okay.
were straight backfills from departments. DPW, we had a highway supervisor 2 vacated on 2/2 due to a promotion, which in turn was a highway supervisor 1 vacated 2/2 due to a promotion. In DSS, we had a caseworker.
And those have all been approved, be back, so and they're in process and everything's good.
Yes, the caseworker vacated due to a resignation. And real properties, we had the data collector leaving on 2/10 due to a resignation.
Do we approve that in government?
We just approved straight
Okay.
backfills.
Gotcha. So we're good.
Yep.
All right. Any questions on any of those backfills? All right, we're good there.
So next is staffing pattern and grade changes. I'll start with the IT department. After further review of the title of systems engineer, we would like to request to change the title from systems engineer to IT support specialist. This would be a staffing pattern change with just a title change only, and also a change to the union contract title only. And the non-union part-time position, it would be the title, and we would have to change the title by grade schedule to put IT support specialist instead of the system engineer.
So we have to change the staffing pattern
Yes,
for the change in the name.
yes,
We also change the title by grade
for the title only,
for the title only. For the part-time title only?
yes.
Okay.
Because that one is non-union, and the other one is union,
And that would be the title for both full-time and part-time.
yes.
Must be Dave understands it. That's good. All right, that's wonderful. Dave moves it, Kathy seconds it.
It's just a question. What is the difference between a system engineer and an IT support specialist?
It's basically the title. Engineer title is a higher level title, so this position is more of a support title.
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
why
Curious.
we reviewed it
Didn't know
and thought it
I
fit
didn't
a
know
little
that
bit
that was
better.
what the difference
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Jim,
Is an engineer more somebody who's tactically putting something together versus somebody who's helping with support? And
More so, yeah.
Okay.
so these need to be
Little
moved.
higher level, I guess you could say, yeah.
I'm sorry, Dave.
Engineer is more gets into the guts of things,
Yeah.
works things, configures things, where the type of support specialist knows how to walk people through fixing what their issues are.
Yep.
So these need to go to the full board, right?
Yes.
For changes, okay. Get a motion a second. Questions? All in favor? Opposed, carried, okay? Take care.
The next one is the DPW senior account clerk to account clerk. She actually requested this in Public Works Committee. She wanted to backfill the senior account clerk with an account clerk position instead.
So the staffing pattern change needs to go to the full board and there'll be
Yes.
actually a reduction in.
Yes. Yep.
Jay and Cassie? Questions? Okay, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Sheriff.
The next one was also moved from public safety. The sheriff was asking for a temporary position of investigator until a retirement. He would also have an investigator out during that time for some training. So he wanted to fill a temporary position as investigator, and then that would sunset upon the retirement of the current investigator.
We talked about this, right?
Yes.
Safety. We went through it all.
It just
We
is
thought it was a good
definitely
idea.
gonna say sunset, and it doesn't say it here, but it is gonna say sunset. in the
Yes.
resolution.
Cassie moved it. 2 seconds it. Questions? I remember they explained it in public safety and it made sense to me, but I don't know the details. Okay, all in favor?
Right.
Opposed, carried. Public safety.
Public safety, this was moved from their committee as well. This was the communications center supervisor discussion where Tim was asking for an upgrade of the communications center supervisor position. This position was actually created in 2018. Tim was stating that it did fall behind when other positions such as the supervising communications officer in the union went up the 3 grades. So this actually didn't follow that. So we're requesting that now to kind of be bumped up to that 3 grade level, which would be the 17, from a 17 to a 20.
So as I recall, the request was made, we sort of threw it back to you because you're the one who makes recommendation on grade changes. And then you're bringing it here and saying it should be a grade 20.
I believe it should be,
Okay.
yes.
Josh is moving it. Sue second. Any discussion? Dan?
What's that do to your budget for .1? Does now that throws that out of whack?
We talked about it in public safety, right? We had a number. I
There
remember
wasn't,
Tim had a number.
yeah, it was the 71. But he would have breakage because of backfilling. It was a 25-year person in that position.
We had somebody who had longevity and steps was making this kind of money, and now we're backfilling with somebody who's
With
starting
someone.
down here, but now we're moving up in this grade. So in the end,
There would be some breakage
they're
there.
probably gonna be paying that person less than the person that's currently there.
Probably, but
Yeah,
most definitely.
And then
Very well, yes.
backfilling a communication officer, probably in the long run.
Jake,
Wasn't there an issue, did we solve the issue of longevity for this person?
That was a separate,
Yes.
separate item.
That was yes.
so we need to change the title by grade schedule to
Yes,
accommodate this,
Yes.
which we're gonna be amending anyway at the board meeting. This is
Yes.
just a second part of that.
right.
So second resolution.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay, handbook changes.
Okay, we have 3 different handbook changes here. The first one is to section 7.001. And this would be, if you see below in red, we would be changing the date from the October 1st of 2009 to January 1st of 2012. It would be that anyone with a floating holiday during between 10/1/09 and 1/1/2012 would now be receiving the floating holiday. It would only affect right now the non-union.
This is for people that were hired between those 2 dates that lost it.
They lost it as, if they were in CSEA, they would have lost it.
Right,
They weren't eligible.
Right, we're eligible.
but it's just that one
Right.
small sect of people
Yes.
that lost it because they fell in this,
The time frame.
Right,
Right,
because, yes, that's it.
and this just kind of clears it up and makes it even, so everybody's doing the same thing all the way through. Dana?
Oh, what are the significance of January 1st, 2012 and January 1st, 2009? It seems like we're going 10 years back in the past. Why are those dates important?
Go ahead.
We're trying to match the date that's in the CSCA contract already. And it just, the 2 didn't match up. It didn't have the same date. So we're just trying to match what's already in the CSCA contract.
Okay.
The CSEA was the 2012 date.
Am I the only one that thinks 12 holidays is very generous as an employer? How many federal holidays are there?
We only get, well, most employees get 11 now, depending on if you're in a union or not. But the non-union employees that are hired now get 11 days, not 12.
I'm not talking about Washington County government. I'm talking about most employees in the county, how many holidays they get? They get the federal holidays probably. And how many federal holidays are there? 11?
Which date on here do we want to give?
I don't like the half a day Christmas Eve, half a day New Year's Eve. And the floater is what everyone used to call it your birthday. You know, we've given people birthday.
No, you took it
holidays,
away, actually.
but you're giving it as a floater.
Not anymore.
Well, if I use the floater on my birthday, right?
But only if you were hired back then. That benefit was taken away from employees that are hired now. Anybody that was hired after that 2012 date.
There are 12 federal holidays.
Birthday. Okay, so these few people get 12 and everyone else gets 12, right? No, Al just said it.
Well, 11, they would get the 11 that are here.
Everybody else would get the 11
Yeah,
and just this small subset would get
get
these
the
12.
12, get the floating.
And only if you're employed between
If you were hired,
2019, 2012.
you were hired in that little window.
So anything prior to those dates have been getting that floating holiday.
The additional federal holiday is Juneteenth.
Which we do not give to non-union or union employees.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Don't tell me that was the easy one.
So that's one. The next one is section 7.02. And this was to add the 0 to 6 months, 5 days of vacation time. So it would be at the start of hire, they would receive 5 days.
So over the course of the whole year, it's the same number of days, it's just the way it's distributed.
Yeah.
And this would also match. Want to do it?
Can we get approval for each one of them separate in case?
Would you like it?
Well,
I move phase
Yeah.
one.
so we don't go backwards, I guess.
I move the holiday.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second on,
Section 7.001.
thank
There
you.
you go.
All right. Dave?
Why don't you just say 0 to 12 months is 5 days?
No, we're on the previous one. We're doing one at a time.
Oh, okay.
Back up, don't catch up, back up.
You said the next one.
Any questions on 7001? All in favor? Opposed, carried. Okay, now we're on 7002.
7002 is the vacation time at 5 days when you start. So 0 to 6 months, you would receive 5 days.
Good question, like you said, 0 to 12.
Because they would receive 5 days at the hire and then an additional 5 days at 6 months. So instead of receiving 10 days at hire, they are receiving 5
And so Matt, so everybody matches across the county.
This is just non-union.
Just 9
Right.
days.
Oh, okay.
Move it.
Today, does that include family leave or is that separate?
That would be separate. Yes, the family medical leave, that is separate. That's a separate contract.
Our FMLA is unpaid, Mr. Johnson.
Okay.
They're kind of
The
related
employees
now.
have to pay that on their own.
There's no contribution because we have unpaid FMLA.
Okay.
So they also don't have to pay into it.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
I would like to ask if the committee approves. What, can we still keep that, yes?
What are you gonna say?
Well, I would like to know if we could, or if I could extend this benefit to the union employees as well, to the unions. Because none of their contracts currently allow for any vacation days at date of hire. And I think it will assist in the recruitment effort. Often people will ask what benefits they get when they start, and it's hard to hire an employee who may have already had family plans or something like that. You have to tell them, well, if you're taking that off, it's with no pay. So I would like to be able to extend that to the unions. They may or may not agree, believe it or not, but if you approve that, then I would like to have an MOA put together with them, and then I would need the chair's signature as well.
I guess my only question is whether the personnel committee would give you that go ahead, or is that a? I guess, I'm not sure.
There's
You're
no
looking for
cost
consensus.
associated with it, so would you think it would be finance, Mr. Trish?
That young lady at the end of the table is the guru of the.
Okay, that's gonna be- Thank you, Deb. Yeah, yeah, I was just thinking. Yeah.
Maybe she's asking if there are any objections to what she's suggesting. And if there aren't any, she'll take other fun with it and come back
If
to us.
the
with it.
union contracts normally go through finance, I guess that makes sense, but I defer to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the union contracts do go through. There's no money involved.
Who's money involved with this?
Not above what's already budgeted.
Right, there's no amendments.
You won't pay them more, you're just gonna pay them not to be here.
Could be a- I mean, there's no. Finance.
Is this just on the, all of it or just on the proposal to get unions? You want a separate motion for unions? On the 5 days?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, would it be possible for the committee to authorize Melissa and Larry to approach the unions and come back to you with the final proposal?
I think that's a good idea, and I think she should come back to us. I'm not sure where they should come back to
Because
us.
she said they may or may not
Here.
accept it, so you could task her with opening the conversation and coming back and report.
Right, I believe, though, I think the process would be to construct an MOA, send it to the unions, but I don't want to do that without your approval.
Right, so you would give her the perimeter.
I don't want to send them an MOA and then find out that, oh, yeah, I can't really offer that to you. I want to have the approval.
So
ahead of
unusual,
time.
usually the match to fit the union.
Yeah,
make the
Dave?
union fit the
So
rest.
wouldn't the proper way, leave the motion we just
It's
did,
different. Yeah.
and give her a motion to go to the, prepare an MOA to go to the unions to see if they agree with making this change?
Yeah, we did pass the first one, right?
Yeah.
We had yeses. I didn't ask for no's, but everyone said yes. So-
Yes, this
For
is
the-
going from
yeah.
0 to 6 months and giving.
Yeah,
them
002. Okay, so you're looking for a separate motion. That would do what, Dave?
That would authorize Melissa to go to the unions with an MOA to discuss whether or not they want to have the same benefit for the union members.
Or
savings, so we can-
Or does anybody have any objection to Melissa headed down that path? Because if there's 10 people who are against it, then you'd say, I'm not gonna bother with it, but if
Well, maybe not, but discussion.
John had his hand up.
I'm second.
I looked to the right more than I looked to the left, that's right. Go ahead, John.
Does this include all the unions?
My request would be to approach all of the unions, yes. Because the recruitment issues that we're seeing right now are across the board. It's not just the non-union positions. So my hope is that it would help sweeten the benefit package to make it, I guess, a little,
More palatable.
yes, palatable for hiring.
And when is next soonest?
The next negotiations start with UPSU, which are our communication officers, and that'll be starting at the end of this year.
Dan had his hand up.
Mine up half an hour ago.
We didn't start, we were in here half an hour ago.
Who's the chairman recognized?
Dan. No, Dan, you had your hand up.
You picked him first.
I picked you first.
Oh, okay. Why would the union not want this?
You wouldn't think that that would be the case.
Right.
But we have brought benefits to unions before. And I think that they think there's always, or could be, another side to that benefit, even though we've told them, no, this is actually going to benefit you. We have had unions not want to increase benefit, suspicious possibly.
They have their own
You give them a
thing.
leverage,
Well, why can't we
giving up a leverage point.
ask for something?
Go ahead, Dan.
You're gonna use it.
Well, I still have the- And my next question is, how does the state, what's their benefit? It's pretty much standard in the state benefit package deal. Don't they have to work and earn it, isn't it, by the hour
I think every employer is different.
within the state?
Yes. Yeah,
I
I think
think they're
even
very
with the
similar.
counties, none of our benefits match, whether it's vacation time or, now there's certain benefits that do match, like you have to offer employee health insurance, have to offer them New York State retirement.
Right.
But not as far as vacation, personal sick, everyone has their own packages that they offer employees.
I mean, I have a hard time imagining offering somebody a job and you've got, okay, you start right out, you got 5 sick days. If you don't want to show up tomorrow, that's okay.
Well, no, you don't get sick days. You have to earn your sick days.
You're gonna earn your sick days.
Yeah, this is just to give them 5 days vacation so that if they have plans, need to take time off, that department head can grant them that and have pay.
So the department head could say, no, you only been here a month, I'm not, you can't, you're not getting the vacation time.
That's the important part.
You
That's the
always
important
need
part. You have to have
approval.
vacation approved by
And
the
you
department
think
head.
this is gonna increase our opportunity to hire people?
I do, because I did have discussions with Danielle, and we have had employees that have not accepted employment because they currently have an employer that they may have 3 weeks vacation, and they don't want to start at zero again, because people have families and prior commitments. And I would just hate to have that be a hurdle from us getting a good employee.
Well, what is it now if you hire somebody, how long before they have that benefit?
6 months for most employees.
Just 6 months?
There is
No,
one
you're
union. Yeah,
So right now, we want to shorten it up from 6 months to 0.
yes,
it's 6 months to get 10 days.
5 days.
So they get 5 days when they start and 5 days after 6 months, so 10 days for the whole first year.
Dana?
To clear that up, I think it was 1 year, you got 10 days. Melissa wanted to move that up to 10 days to start. We said no, split it 5 days to start, 5 days, 6 months later, is that right?
Yes, I did ask for 10 initially.
Okay. I'm sure you must have some small ask when you have your union contracts, you write the margin, something next time you negotiate, a small ask here or there, or something like that. Couldn't you have a small ask with this so that they're not suspicious of what it is? You'd say, here it is.
I can, if the committee would rather, I can hold off on this with the unions and bring it to negotiations. Maybe it's something they'll ask for. I guess I'm thinking more on the trying to recruit side of it in this case and how it would benefit us as an employer.
Well, I'm not saying wait till the end of this year. I'm saying if you're gonna have an MOU, where you're gonna give them this, and you also say in the MOU that we also ask and trade for this.
I'd have to check with the labor attorney, but I think that's actually opening up negotiations. And we wouldn't do that mid-year typically.
So if you give something with nothing asking, you don't have to open up negotiations.
Right, we could do an MOA.
Dave?
I'll be sure the unions will forget about it.
I'll remind them.
Some of the unions will not negotiate again for another 2 or 3 years.
Correct.
So I think we have recruiting problems now, and if you look at some of the employers, especially ones that may be coming in gravel pretty soon, they're starting benefits day one. So we are competing against them big time too, especially with drivers.
Right.
And as far as the union saying no, it's kind of like politics. You always get people in politics that want credit for whatever they did. The union might want credit that we fought and got you this rather than it came to them. You get that belonging too, so it works both ways.
Is anybody objecting to Melissa presenting this as a possible MOA? Okay, I don't think we do a formal resolution, but I think you have
Have approved.
tepid support from this group.
That was good.
Better than icy support.
Okay.
Okay, what's next? Quick, hurry. All
Okay.
right, 7.3.
7.03 is the no limit on sick time accumulation. So
Did we discuss this in government action?
yes, there was a maximum of 205 days. We now want to change that to no maximum limit. Prior to this resolution, an employee could accumulate the 205 days. We'd like to change that.
And the government approved board, I'll make some point on this, that we both, given what it was though. Taking the gap off of days.
Good, smart, that thing.
I appreciate this is coming up as I'm using my 2 extra ones on Friday.
Okay.
People would
I move it.
Thank you.
Sorry, I move it, that wasn't going.
Discussion.
Doing punch it.
All in favor?
Hey, I can hit the other way.
Opposed, carried. That was 7003. Is that the last one? Okay, so that takes care of the handbook. Next, we head to
Department head review.
the Harvard, our most favorite time of the year.
They're excited.
It's like holiday time all over again.
So in your packet is the instructions for the department head review process. Also a department head evaluation sheet. And on the back side is a tentative schedule that we can discuss the dates and times for those.
Generally, the feedback we got from last year that we liked the forum, we liked the process. There was really no major tweaks to put it, but we wanted to do it earlier.
Definitely earlier.
And so we moved it up.
Can't fit it into March.
We went through the smart schedule and it would be piggybacking a lot, a couple of weeks. The first week of April is the best we could do. So we're looking at April 4th for a whole day and April 6th for half a day and get them all over with.
That's what we're gonna do, so anyway.
And that would, that's right. And that would give, most of the time, Melissa's got to go through all her whole process, meet with everybody, formalize everything with them, then come back to us. Any sooner would be a real.
And before I start that, the department heads actually have to get their
Right.
portion.
Right. So if you start now, probably this beginning of April is about as quickly as you could make this happen.
Yes.
That's where we're at. Anybody have any comments? So you and Danielle sort of get the ball rolling and make it happen?
Yes, we'll get the schedule out to the department heads. We'll send a bigger version of it out to the supervisors, so you're.
What are you complaining about? You can't even read that anyway.
I couldn't read it in the email, and I thought we'd get to read it here, but I
Yeah,
didn't
it's
read
pretty
it here
small.
either.
Pretty small.
I tried it on the email.
Yeah.
It does not help.
Okay.
There's a lot of, Sue was sitting next to me one day, I'm like, this is so
I can't
small, I
read it
can't even
either, and I
read it.
made it.
Oh my God, I have it upside down.
Danielle, what else we have?
That's all that I have.
Anything else to come before the personnel committee this morning?
Today is an application.
Okay. Adjourn.
Yeah.
Headed to finance.
No.
We're so good.
Oh, we can throw it up.
So my.
We'd like to do that.
Okay.
That's really good.
I'm checking them out. Don't worry. I got a town board meeting tonight. That's gonna be a big.
Okay, so, okay.
I'm honest. Sorry. I was supposed to get some.
Supervisor.
I'd like to
Don't worry.
I'm not sure which way they're coming. Okay, thank you.
I do.
No, I got you.
Okay.
Crap, I sat next to
No, I
her.
know.
She likes her left
Just go
side.
right
Dana.
over there. I'm
Okay,
really done the same.
so we'll call for finance to order.
It's a little weird.
I need a motion to accept the minutes. Second by Kathy, second by Dave O'Brien, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, so we'll- okay, real property, corrected tax bills.
Resolution A, there's a list of corrected tax bills, and we'll, normally I don't have this many, but because of resolution B, that, we'll explain. Okay, so normally, if we look at resolution B, which I'm gonna skip to that before I do A, if that's okay with everybody. Resolution B, I found that we did some research on the
approval of tax bills prior to the meeting, the finance meeting, should be done by an official who's empowered to authorize payment of bills without prior audit, which would be the county administrator. Back in 2015, we approved a resolution for me to approve any refunds or corrected tax bills that are under $1,500. So based on that information that we've recently come across, and this has to be done yearly, based on that information, that person would be the county administrator in Washington County. So as a result of that, I did not want to approve any bills out of audit without bringing them all to you. A lot of these normally I could have approved ahead of time and you would just get my report and then you would, we would do our normal thing, which will happen next month if I have, actually I have one on my desk right now, where I can approve it if it's less than 15,000, the county administrator would sign off on it. And then 1,500. That limit can go up to $2,500. And that's why the resolution, 1,500, okay, so, perfect. I don't have a resolution, I just have what I
Majority
submitted.
would be under 50.
Yeah, majority of them would be. I mean, if somebody had an agent exemption at 50%, they'd have to have over a $4,000 tax bill. And chances are somebody with that would be in that situation, so.
So we need a motion to move B. By Cassie, second by Dave. Is there discussion on this?
Going back to A.
Yes.
One thing I do want to point out is this will have to be done this should be done yearly. And I've talked to Debbie about doing it at the organizational meeting at the first of the year, so that it's done. And as soon as those corrected tax bills start coming across my desk, I can start approving them. So that'll hopefully be done at the organizational meeting. Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And now we're back to A.
Okay, so back to A, there's a list of corrected tax bills that are coming before us today. If anybody has any questions, I can.
Two of them were more than 1,500.
Yeah.
So,
That's why this.
So that would have to come
That
before
would
this
have to
board
come
anyways.
either way.
Yes,
okay, so the other
Yeah.
ones after this wouldn't happen.
Right.
correct. I would report them or county administrator, and I would
Yeah,
report
John.
them.
I don't know if this falls under this. It's corrected tax bill. When we had from our reval and you get the grievance board and then some went to Article 7, some went to, in our town, went to a hearing officer in the county. Is that a corrected tax bill when that is settled?
That it gets based on the settlement.
But
There's a correct,
I do that
the-
under order of the court. That's
the court.
separate from this.
And who issues the refund?
It depends on who collected the tax. The county issues refunds for the town and the county. You get a letter from me that says, hey, do you want me to refund on your behalf? You always say yes. For schools and villages, if it was paid to the school and village, they're responsible for the refund.
Okay, so you will refund on these settlements for the towns?
For Article 7s and small claims, I will process a refund if it's been paid. And our process currently
Right.
is that I reach out to the town supervisor asking if you want me to do it for you, and then you see it in September on your due county bill.
Okay, thank you.
I got Cassie.
So up here where it says AV not updated, I'm guessing assessed value.
assessed value, that was the assessed value between tentative and final assessment roll. There was a different number that came in from New York State.
Which is an awful.
In terms of words and stuff.
It was a bad error, a clerical error.
No, it went from 13,936 down to 13,239. So the first column is the original tax bill amount. The second one is the corrected tax bill amount.
That's it.
I got that.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Why does two of them say unlawful entry and then clerical error?
Because that's what they come under real property tax law 550.
When the
It's
state,
each correction or refund has to fall under a particular law or else I cannot approve it. And if it falls under the particular, I have to put in there what it is, and they all fall under. Most of them are clerical usually. This was an unlawful because it was based on numbers that were given by the state, and those state numbers didn't come until later. And that was the only one that had a change, was in the town of Fort Anne. All the rest of them did not have a change from tentative to final, We had issues also with telecommunication ceilings last year from New York State, but there were no changes on any of those. So there is one on here that I'm waiting, the last one on the bottom. I am waiting for the assessor's affidavit to be signed, but I should be getting that hopefully soon. But everything else is ready to go.
So I need a motion in a second. Moved by Dave, second. Sue. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, county administrator.
The DPW request to have a bid awarded. This is for a Ford 250 XL. They'd like to award the bid to Nielsen Ford of Morristown Incorporated. And this truck, let's see, this is $51,064.08.
And this is resolution D, I believe. Yes.
Or restriction.
Well, yeah,
I
but
went
it's
the wrong
further
way.
down, well, it's down further, it's
Yeah.
under DSS. there, so-
Sorry. yes.
So that's okay. Moved by Hicks, seconded by James and Dave. Discussion.
Didn't we have, I hate to bring this up, gas, diesel, didn't we have a discussion about getting prices in gas, diesel?
Yes, we did.
So this is just gas,
This one was only bid gas, the way I
Okay.
understood.
just wondering.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried.
We'll
Okay,
go back to C.
well, we could, but it's further down, I think. See, okay, we'll see. I thought it was further down.
DSS had, we had a bid out for 3 compact SUVs. There are 3 Toyota Cross Ls at $25,992 each. And this is awarding, let's see, Hudson Motors Partnership.
Moved by Dave, second by Cassie. Oh, of course, Dave, oh, he's got a Toyota. Is there any discussion? Why were you hybrid? Mr. Abt.
A while back, DSS had some criteria where they wanted the ground clearance to hatchback. This meets some, this meets that.
It does.
And are these all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive? Does it say anything about what kind of wheel drive?
All-wheel drive.
It would have been on the spec. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure what the spec actually went out as, but it looks like they were all SUVs that responded.
What would that mean? Does SUV, does that mean all-wheel drive?
Yes, it's a pretty good price.
We'll find out they're all electric later, we'll be fine. Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay.
Hopefully, everybody's got their packets in front of them. First sales tax deposit of the year, which is actually for sales during the Christmas season, is in. It's $168,000 over last year, and $500,000 over 2 years ago. So the Christmas season stayed strong. I don't expect, and there's no part of me that expects the growth of last year to continue this year. I would be extremely happy if we maintained, to be quite honest with you. But it was encouraging to see that the Christmas shopping season was still as strong, which I think Jimmy had alluded to back when we talked about this the first time. His personal experience was that it was fairly strong. This deposit actually indicates that he was correct. What I've also included for you this time, I think there was a conversation last time about, while I can't give specific sales tax information, there's some categorical stuff that is maybe useful. So I have a couple of things, and I apologize to Supervisor Fedler in advance. The second page is rankings, years that are listed above. So I've taken some of the top categories And auto sales consistently is our number one, but you do see some fluctuations, within the top 10. And you see some that joined the top 20 in the past 5 years that weren't there the year prior. So where you see a blank in their rankings means they weren't in the top 20 in those years and now have moved into the top 20. So there's not great variances, but you do see things like the online sales kind of to tick up into different positions in the rankings. The next couple of pages after that, I've actually given you the top 100 categories and the actual gross sales in those categories. So it listed those again from highest to lowest.
What's an example of an administrative and economic
I was
program?
afraid you're gonna ask. So
Thank you.
I can't intelligently answer that question because tax and finance continues to move things around. Where the online shopping is now wasn't where it was 5, 6, 8 years ago. So I'm not extremely comfortable that it's apples to apples comparisons to begin with. And there's some things like some of the utility stuff where they choose to put it is not consistent. In some years, I'll see something in a utility line that, because it may have been, say, when a solar, I hate to say that word out loud right now, but if there's a solar development that goes in, in its construction versus the actual process, there are different categories. So the same solar field could be in 2 different places in 2 different years. So I can't really speak to who's in the categories, but at least the categories is some kind of measurement over time of where growth is or isn't.
So electronic shopping and mail order, how it says it's online.
Yes.
How about when a motor vehicle is bought through Carvana or Flow or something like that?
So
Is that a mail order?
because the sales tax is still related to the county of registration, I would say that's still.
You still think it's separated out and they're not convoluted?
Because if whether they do it online or they do it here in our own county clerk's DMV, that county of registration is gonna trigger all that sales tax.
Well, that's why I wondered if it was counted both ways.
Well, you only get it once.
Well, you only get it once, but because it would come through as an online order. That's the part that scared me to for age.
It would come in as an option.
Okay.
Gambling tax? Is that gambling taxes? So,
I'm not sure where that's living right now because some of that's also in its infancy.
okay, so it might not be the top. Yeah.
That might be your administration of economic programs.
They created them.
And I don't know that it's a sales tax.
Right, that's the other question we were kind of like.
There's no tax.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that might be a different
It's not a tax.
reporting conclusion.
Right.
That was the first thing I thought.
Right.
Yeah, I think that was, when that was generated, I think it came as a straight tax.
Just, okay.
It wasn't a sale, it was a sales.
Does, number 10, the direct selling establishments are happy direct selling establishments? Grocery store is not a direct selling establishment.
And again, I can order from the state if you want to know who's in these categories. I can't, as I sit here right now, speak to who's in them.
So that means something that was made right there and they.
Oh,
really?
Cassie answered it, thank you.
So we have some up in the western part of Washington County, we have some businesses that are considered in the Queensbury mailing address. How do you ensure we're capturing the sales tax? We know where to get it.
We don't. That's a short answer. For 12 years now, we've been having this battle because this is one of the first things that I tried to take on. We have the same problem in the southern end of the county with Rexley, Eagleville, Busker. And they're even more negatively impacted because their zip codes trigger a rensselaer address, which is 8%. So not only is it not coming to the county, the taxpayers actually being harmed. So we have 2 things that we utilize now when people reach out to me. I have a card that I certify and seal that they're able to present to vendors that certifies that they're a Washington County resident. Tax and Finance finally has a online lookup tool that they can actually print out and get. So Tax and finance now will actually certify your address, what jurisdiction that's in. What I'm also told by finance is depending on the level of computer technology that the business is using, they can know by address. Some of the softwares know now that they didn't know 10 years ago, but I'm told that some of the softwares know
They can
by zip
distinguish,
code.
they can distinguish physical from mail.
The best advice they can give me at this time is to encourage people to use the 4-digit extension after the zip code. That will help ensure proper rate jurisdiction. So we've made small steps, Mr. Hogan, but there's still no one size fits all solution. I work with everybody that I can that reaches out to me. Some of the vendors have been great to deal with. We've made several successes with cell phone companies and stuff. We've gotten through to some of the vendors with the resident cards that we issue and the printout from tax and finance. And some of the things that you don't realize, or at least I didn't realize, you probably do, when you're in one of those other zip codes, like Rexley, Eagleville, and Muskert, and they triggers a Rensselaer County zip code. When you get car insurance, homeowners insurance, you're actually put into their risk pool, not Washington County's risk pool. So there are several ways that can negatively affect not only the county, but the residents. We do try to take small stabs at it best we can.
Sam?
Yeah, we got the same issue up with Pilot now in Catskill Bay. It's Catskill Bay real address, or zip code.
And we have one taxpayer that has reached out to us several times, and, you know,
What we should do.
we do take a
The
step.
winery that time, remember the mailbox is in Queensbury and the establishment's in Fort Ann. And I assume that we get that sales tax, but those, you know, that's significant. I know FSA, the lady that works behind the counters at Patty Pearson, is often given the treasurer great credit when I'm down that she got the card years ago that she could use because wherever she lives, it was a case.
Several people in my town have.
And she said it was just a case where it was never accurate and that straightened it all out. So kudos to you.
Small steps.
Yeah.
The lower side, Johnsonville and Buster had a tough time.
I think you have to raise your hand.
No, only you.
I was only shaking my head at first.
Is it still true that it's a wash because you go across the Hudson River to Moreau and a lot of those businesses are Fort Edward zip code? That used to be the story, that it kind of was a wash.
I don't know that it would be a wash, but that it does go the other way on that zip code.
Yes, Cassie.
So then it's a benefit if we're fixing it on our side to get our people right, but they're not bothering on their side, we're still getting their tax. So complain. We're trying to make it nice to watch.
Don't tell the governor, it'll be in the next one.
Our cash balances continue to be strong, and the other thing that's we're a little bit happy on this side of things is our investment account with West Falls National now is paying 4.45%. You gotta remember, just 12 months ago, we were at 0.15, 0.18. So we're definitely, you know, we're definitely earning more, but it also means in a few minutes when I talk to you, we're also gonna be paying more. So, but I'm happy to be working with the vendors, and that investment rate's pretty decent right now. There's a couple of other new players in the market that we'll talk to and see if it's a fit for us. But Glens Falls National has been a great partner, and she's making our money work for us while we have.
And that competition has made them a better player.
They have
They've stepped to the plate because of the
They have
competition.
definitely kept their word so far. I can't really complain about 4.45% rate.
Now, on that, the same with ICS and not the CDs.
Yeah, because the CD rate right now is actually below this, so there's no benefit to it.
Okay, thank you.
And the towns
I
have,
continue to monitor them because the market is changing, but
and the towns have the same opportunity, not as good an opportunity, but the bank is working with us through ICS, so we aren't doing CDs right now.
Like 5 months of mental health has good news, like the storm clouds coming in, something like that.
but wait, there's more. The next few pages of the report, there's 4 pages that are a summary that you normally get. After those 4 pages, I actually gave you a little more detail for the first time to see which or both you like. So the budget by function report that I normally give you, kind of showing you year-over-year budget to actual. The second budget by function report actually takes like general government support and shows you who the departments are in that group. So you're not seeing just the group total, you're seeing each of the individual departments within that group. So I gave it to you both ways this time to see if you like one better than the other, or if you want to continue to get both. I don't need to know right now, but just, any feedback is welcome. The biggest highlights that I wanted to throw out to you is, as I sit here today, I'm still projecting a $3.5 to $4 million surplus in 2022. So that's going to bring us to 25 million all in. I want to have a more substantial conversation with you about that at a later date. We are growing again for the second year. We just need to have a conversation. The capital meeting later today, we open up that discussion as well, but we're going to have some serious conversations about what we want to do with that money and what's the best way to leverage that money for our tax. Carpool is still going to have a fairly negative downturn for 22. So I still want to meet with Brian in depth, but I think that the rate change for 23, I may hold off and see how that plays out first before I start running screaming down the hall. Because the fund is not well right now. But I'm hoping that the rate change may start, that ship will turn slowly. And I may have to be patient, but we'll monitor that and see how it goes. The other conversation that we'll be having, I think, next month, I've talked to the budget officer about this already. The other fund that's in some, I'm not gonna say trouble because that's a strong word, but the other fund that needs attention right now is workers' comp. There was significantly higher claims last year, especially in regards to one specific case. While that case came in significantly less than we were prepared for, it was still a rather large number for what we carry as a fund balance. So next month, we'll report out to you how the fund looks, what the amount of that case was, what the reserve is, and what our options are to ensure that we are not, because again, we all share, we being capital C County and capital T towns, all share in that pool every year. So if it negatively affects the workers' comp fund, it will in turn negatively affect the capital C County in each of the 17 towns. So we'll have a conversation next month, I believe, about where that fund stands and what our options are. That's as much as I have as far as my report.
So globally, you guys probably don't see this coming together yet, but Al and I have talked closely on this. So we're going to talk about the capital plan. We're going to talk about workers' comp next month. And then we're going to know where we're coming in after that. And hopefully we can take, what did you call it? You had a name for it. The increase or the?
Any growth.
The growth. The growth would go down, hopefully, to the capital plan, because even though we look like we've got more money, we also have a lot more needs. And the other part of that is keeping our fund balance has to be kept at a higher number, because our cash flow is more important now, because inflation's increased our costs, and we've also increased the amount of money that's going out to our employees. So for cash flow purposes, the new number and fund, we have to come up with what we think that should be and work around that. So it's kind of a big global picture, but the reason we're talking about these things in phases so we can put them all together and make better decisions.
The second thing I have for you is the bonding resolutions. So both of these start, we had this conversation in Public Works already. They're on their way. Barry will have them to me either today or tomorrow. We thought maybe by today, but I haven't got them yet. As soon as I get them, I'll forward them on to Deb. So there'll be seeker resolutions and bonding resolutions, and there'll be 3. There'll be a bonding resolution for 13 million. That is the Middle Falls and Fort Ann Barnes. Remember, in Fort Ann, we'll be doing through an IMA with the town of Fort Ann. That'll be a 60-40 split. We'll borrow the money through agreement. They'll pay their 60%. We'll pay our 40% of the debt service that they're coming to do. It right now looks like I have a renewal next month. It does not look like we'll be borrowing the Fort Ann barn money next month. It looks like that will be, by the time we get through public hearings and IMAs and public referendums and all of the necessary things, I think that we're gonna be really, really tight up against the March borrowing, if it's possible at all. So I think that you'll see that that will be June or July that we go, and that'll be a whole separate borrowing, and maybe that's better that way anyway. The other two borrowings will be for the sewer district. One is for sewer one, which is a anticipated $1.5 to $2 million slip line project in the IDA park that services the and Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong, services the IDA park and pieces of Warren County on the other side. There's a sewer line that services that park, and
It's the old line that goes down right Queensbury Street down there. And that's the one that needs to be supplying the services both parts, both sides of the street. So there's some sharing going on, but that's what that part is.
and they've applied for a grant for that one. They've got an award of $226,000 for the engineering piece. You'll see that later in the packet today. So you'll see the borrowing resolution will be for the 2 million, but we're only going to borrow in year one, the 226 to cash flow, because it's one of those spend it and get it back grants. So they're only going to borrow the grant award in year one, but the authorization that you see will be for the anticipated project. The third one is going to be a $5.5 million authorization for a project in the village of Hudson Falls for stormwater separation. And that is up on the Verge, Leclerc. There's an area that the project is going to. The anticipated cost of that project right now is anywhere from 4.8 to 5.5. So you see the authorization for 5.5, and in year one, it's only going to be borrowing about 500,000, which will be the engineering piece. He's applied for a $3.8 million grant. If the grant comes in, I'll come back to you, because there's also a resolution later in the packet to establish the budget for that project. And we'll come back to you. If he's awarded the grant, then we'll need less borrowing, obviously. But if the grant's a reimbursement grant, he'll still need the cash flow. So we'll have further discussions, but you'll see 3 authorizations, the barns and the 2 sewer projects in your packets.
One additional on that one, even though it's in Hudson Falls, that's going to be benefit the entire sewer district, because we're getting a lot of issues with inflows coming in. That is limiting what the sewer plant can do and limits growth for economic growth, residential growth.
So for what my understanding is, DEC has imposed a 4-to-1 trade-off for the sewer district. So for every 100,000 gallons of that they receive, they've got to find 400,000 gallons of relief somewhere. So these stormwater projects have become extremely important if they're going to expand the district at all.
This one is projected to bring in more than 4,000.
This is a pretty large one. This is my understanding. We're looking, Chairman, for a motion for whether it's all 3 separate or all 3 together. I don't care.
Are they in here or?
They're not here
They're
yet.
not here yet. Okay, so we need a resolution to bring those 3 borrowing.
Because they might be here after the packet in the morning.
Okay. So is there a motion, Dave, second? Cassie? Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
What do the 3 altogether total?
Just short of 19.
I don't want anybody to be surprised, you know, we add them all together. It's gonna be pretty sizable.
And again, those are the up to amounts. We'll only borrow what the cash flows require in that 12-month period, because we'll ban the first 3 years no matter what. And then, you know, as we have capital discussions, we'll talk about whether or not the county needs to go long-term on any of this.
Okay.
I have one other item, Chairman, that I don't know if you want to do under other, if you want me to do it while I have the floor.
Oh,
We had 2 leftover properties that did not cross the finish line from the auction. I have received an offer on one of those properties from the former owner, which is actually more than what it sold for at auction. So it will be my recommendation for 2 reasons. It's going back to the original owner, And it's actually more than we were willing to take from the auction price. So if the committee was willing to entertain that, I would present a resolution to accept the bid on the leftover property for $4,100. Auction, that's right around what was owed at the time it went to auction, just for information. I think that's where you got the number
Second by
from.
Dave. Is there discussion?
Where?
Where's the property?
You're not saying the name, is there a reason why?
Oh, no, I have no problem, because it would be in the resolution anyway. It's in the town of Whitehall. I would have to go with the folder real quick to get you his name. But it's a property that was actually bought from our auction 5 years ago. There's some dispute as to the assessed value, but that's,
I just wanted to
Separate
know that
from-
a sale of property that we talked about.
those properties are, you'll hear about those again. But they are, that bank, I have successfully navigated that bankruptcy case. And 4 of the 6 properties are currently in our title in the town of Salem and Jackson. But this property is one that went to auction in Whitehall. The purchaser turned out to have delinquent taxes and made him ineligible. So we had to reject his bid, and the second bidder did not step up. The owner now is put an offer in to buy it back from
To confirm, are they paying more than what was owed back tax?
I'd have to check supervisor. It's right around what the base that was due at the time of the auction. Without the
Can
interest.
we require, if it's the same owner buying it back, can we require that they pay what was owed?
You have the right to require, so
To
the
ensure that they're paying at least what was owed.
So the sale of the property is completely at your discretion. So I can get the exact dollar amount. I'm just bringing to you what the offer was. Which is excess of what we accepted from the auction.
You see where I'm going with
Yes,
this?
right,
I don't
no,
want
yeah.
people letting it go to auction, and coming back and buying it.
No, and that was the same question I had to Al. And he said it was pretty much what was owed without the penalties,
And
right?
our current rules would actually allow an owner to bid at auction. Under our current rules.
As long as they're paying what they owe.
And I can send him back a counter offer from the board if that's your desire.
Well, I guess what was the amount owed plus the penalty should be the minimum that's expected in this case.
But what if he says, no, it's too much, Dan, and then we're out, then we get nothing.
Then you gotta go
Next-
back.
next
Let's
year.
find out what the difference is. If the difference is a couple $1,000s, like, you know, he might,
The difference would be a couple hundred at this point, but I can get you an exact dollar.
so,
Well, were you stuck on the base? Because that's what we're
I
owed,
agree.
or the base plus the interest plus the penalty,
I agree with you.
which is all 3?
So if you want me to bring this back under other, I'll go over and get the exact numbers for you and we'll have this discussion
We
later.
have a motion on the floor. If anyone wants to make that amendment, I'll second it.
I'd like to amend it just to ensure that they're paying what the back taxes owed plus any penalties and interest owed.
And fees.
But do we not want to hear back?
Yeah, I'm gonna abstain because I don't even know what we're talking about.
As of what date, Supervisor?
I guess would you want to withdraw the motion?
I would withdraw until it brings back information and then go forward.
Which date do you want me to get you a number for? Today's date or the auction?
Today's date.
Today's date.
Up to no vote.
No, yeah, no problem.
Motion's withdrawn.
I'll get you the number in a minute.
Very good. Okay. So next we're on.
So we withdrew the original motion, Joe?
Yeah.
All right.
We'll make sure we have all the facts before we.
That's not like this. I have all the facts before.
We're on the budget amendments. Okay, we're at E, I believe. This is the Lauderdale Park budget. It's just moving from different lines because it's from point 2 to point 4. Moved by Cassie, seconded by James. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Resolution F is capital improvement plan. It has to do with that fire alarm system we put off for years. We're finally getting it engineered. So moved by Dave, second. Cassie, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. G is public health budget to carry over unspent early intervention funds, and these are just because they come in late in the year and they have no time to spend them, so. By Dave, second by Cassie, any discussion?
Which one do you want?
G.
Yeah, so I have a question. The contingency line, 1990, 450, you're gonna Add?
2,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Usually it's when it comes in on wages and we already have the wages set. So that we move it to contingency because it's already budgeted. That's why the contingency line always grows during the year at different times. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution H is to carry over unspent. This is same type thing. Dave, second by Cassie. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I is another one carrying over unspent public health fellowship grant. Moved by Dave, second by Cassie. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution J is carryover of unspent COVID vaccine response funds. Motion by Cassie, second by Dave. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? K is public health budget to carry over unspent preparedness grant funds. Moved by Cassie, second by Dave. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried. L is public health budget to carry over unspent COVID-19 ELC funds. Dave, second. Cassie. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We are on to M. M is a carryover for unspent child passenger safety grant. Moved by Dave, second by Cassie. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Carried. 9 is carryover of district funds. Moved by Cassie, second by Dave. Any discussion on those? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. O is DSS OFA budget, response funds. Moved by Dave, second by Cassie. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. P is the budget for youth placed in Office of Children and Family Services. Moved by Dave, second by Dana Hogan. Clary, I got Cassie, I got everybody. Everybody's involved now. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried. Q is a budget to recognize credit of emergency solutions grant, or DSS. Motion by Dave. Second by Cassie. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution R is the budget to carry over unspent adult protective services grants. Motion. Second by Cassie, second by Dave. Sue, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution S is DSS budget to carry over unspent rental supplemental program funds. Moved by Cassie, seconded by Dave. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. T is to amend the DSS budget to recognize credit of emergency solutions grant. Moved by Dave, seconded by Cassie. Any discussion on those? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. U is to amend the budget for extreme risk protection order evaluations. Moved by Dave, seconded by Cassie. Any discussion?
This is that new thing that sheriff has to do
Yes.
if someone files a complaint. But Sue had asked about storage for these things, forfeiture. This stuff is held and could possibly go back. It's
Yes.
held, right?
Some has been held and gone back already.
Person's innocent or whatever, it goes back. I thought we had authorized money in the past for the storage of these. But now we need more.
This is the order eval.
This is
In
for
other words,
paperwork, right?
Supervisor have, what this generally, I believe, is for, I'm the one who's been doing most of these, in fact, all of these proceedings. Occasionally, we have juveniles under the age of 18 that there's a FERPO request on. And under the law, they can't possess a firearm anyway, except in very limited circumstances most of the time. And what we're trying to do in most of these cases is if it's something that doesn't necessarily need to go through the family court juvenile delinquency route. You know, unfortunately, the way the statute is kind of worded, it's try to get everybody to file to avoid the blame if somebody doesn't and something happens. So what the process has generally been when a juvenile comes in, is we want to get an evaluation done just to make sure, for lack of a better term, this was maybe 9 times out of 10, the kid said something stupid, versus if there is an issue there, we want to be able to address it. So I mean, we've had, at least since June, when the new amendments went into effect, I think we're up to 4 or 5. And this is we only handle it when the sheriff's department is the filing agency. If the village does it, if the village police department does it, state police does it, we're not covering that. This would be used for those purposes.
So the $5,000 and increase the appropriation. So the number be assigned by treasurer. So would this be the county attorney's department? Where would this be? The sheriff's
This is gonna be in the mental health budget.
mental health.
Yeah, Rob York is facilitating these.
So the referrals, when they come through the school, does that go to the sheriff? Is that how that works? How does that track?
The school sheriff is one of the agencies, superintendent that can do it. So far, you know, they were very hot to trot the first couple times until they realized, A, that they would have to be testifying, and B, that the school attorney would have to represent them on it. Now, you know, unfortunately, many of our school resource officers are sheriff's deputies, and some of them are finding their way through that way. So we can't control kind of how it comes in. It's, you know, I get
So there isn't a single point of entry for the sheriff.
more often than not.
Okay.
And remember, it's like the juvenile doesn't necessarily have any of these things that they're gonna take. Lots of times they're living with a grandparent or something and everything.
Right, that's kind of
Yeah.
the other issue is that if there are firearms in the house and they belong to a parent, grandparent, whatever, and we're, you know, what we're looking to do more often than not is also come up with a plan to make sure that the lawful owner of the firearms can maintain possession of them and make sure it's safe in such a way that, no pun intended, because one of the things we're trying to do is make sure the person has a gun safe that reaches a certain rating so that it's that much more difficult for the juvenile to access, basically.
For education and safety.
Yes.
Yeah, was it, my understanding and when this was discussed the other day, that 5,000 was the cost of one evaluation.
It's not so far. I know that we've done one so far, and I want to say it was around 1,200. Basically, I know there's the evaluator had 2 sessions with the child, prepared a report for the court. So I want to say that the price was around 1,200. Rob would have a better idea of that than I would. But
Do you remember
this
that,
is-
Sue, when Rob reported on that? Did he say how pricey these were? And I thought he implied that there was more than that. So that's
Well, I think it's because there's so many in the pipeline.
Well, it depends. I mean, thankfully, we haven't had as many as I feared we would have so far. But, you know, knowing that, you know,
They're expecting others, so they're.
we're expecting others.
Money in.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you know, it'll probably, if it exceeds that number, they're gonna come back for more.
Unknown territory.
Right. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, resolution V is the sheriff's budget to recognize Project Lifesaver Program grant. So, motion. Moved by Sue, seconded by James. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Resolution W, consultant services for ESD, WCSD capital planning sewer district. Motion. Moved by Dave, second by Sue. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Resolution X, another sewer district budget for consultant services for speeds. Motion, Dave, second. Jesse, so just any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Resolution Y is to amend the capital project number 114, long-term control plan. See the bonding there. Moved by Dave, second. Cassie, any discussion on that? What's that?
Both starts as we already did that.
Yeah. They can now predict the future. There was a few other things wrong in there too. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay. Resolution Z, sewer district number 1 rehabilitation and replacement, this ESD grant, state aid. Motion. Moved by Dave, second by Jay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. That's a fun day. Resolution AA. Award longevity pay to full-time communications officer. Just the one that Tim Hardy wanted to speak on, or?
And if we have a question.
Okay,
I'll move it.
it's already been discussed in committee, so moved by Sue. Third, second, Cassie. Any discussion?
I have a question. This was already discussed in committee. Why does it? I guess they always say supervisor, right? What's
Yes.
that committee?
Yep. Full board, I think.
But we'll have the names of the finance committee or that subcommittee.
It's public safety. This is because it's coming through finance, not finance. If it goes direct, it would be from the committee. It comes
Never
through.
part of the other half.
No, a lot of them do because a lot of them aren't money related.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution AB, authorizing approving a settlement to an action relating to the opioid crisis. Moved by James. Is there a second? Dave? Any discussion? What?
Is this Kevin? Is this the Kevin one?
It doesn't say that.
We already did.
This is CVS, Walgreens, and
Is
Walmart.
this the fourth one?
I've lost track. We also got one that we didn't have to sign an agreement on. It was for Malacron. That's coming through a national opioid trust. So some of them we're getting these settlement documents on, and some are flowing through that opioid trust, which we don't have to do these on. So I'll continue to try to report out to you as they come in. We just got another 5,000 from that the Malacron one that was through the trust. Those monies are 100% restricted. Where these are traditionally half and half.
So can we get a running sheet? Kind of just be up.
Yeah, I don't know how often you want them. If you
No, I
every
don't
time.
know either, but maybe every time one's added or something.
The good news is right now you've created a reserve, so all the money's going into reserve until such time as it's not. Which would take board action to spend it, so.
Is there a price tag to the settlement? Is there a price tag to this?
This one,
We didn't have the number Tuesday when we were talking about it. There wasn't a number yet.
Right. And the problem is coming in teaspoons, so by putting it in a plan like this, we can use it for some good eventually.
Yes, I seem to remember a long time ago when we were discussing if we wanted to enter into the suit, that we would not enter into a suit that included the pharmacies. And this one includes pharmacies. And this resolution would be against what we decided to do when we decided to enter into this big class action suit, because there are certain things we could do and didn't have to do.
I thought it
Anybody
was the
remember that?
local little mom and pop
Right.
pharmacies, not the
Yeah.
big chain pharmacies.
And
It
I
was the
think that
local
was going
guy.
in,
I
that
don't
was,
think we
thought-
differentiated between mom and pop and pharmacies.
I think we did, but that's just my.
well,
recollection.
but I also
Pretty-
think it was
pretty-
different. That was talking about the lawsuit. This is the settlement after the fact. So we're not going after anybody now. They're just paying because they settled.
But they would have to be part of our suit
They would be
as a
part of this.
defendant.
They'd be part of the settlement, not necessarily did we go after them,
You'd have
but in
to.
the total settlement, that it goes to different branches.
I don't
if
think
the
it
court
works the same way
decides-
as giving vacation days to, I don't think it works that way. They have to be named in our suit in order to be a defendant.
It's a class action though that involved a lot of people and a lot of organizations.
But I think
And
in
then the
ours, we
court, then when
said,
the court
we
sends it
said-
out,
all those except pharmacies. I might be remembering wrong, but because I remember I said,
I,
you know, if you go in your pharmacy and then you have your medicine cabinet and somebody steals it out of it, why do you blame the pharmacy? How many years ago was that we decided to enter into this? No, long ago.
Was it 18? Was it that long?
I was here. Yeah. But some of these states, even as Walgreens and Walmart, doesn't include any of the mom and pops.
But they're pharmacies. I don't recall that we said small, because then you'd have to have a criteria, what's small, what's not. You couldn't just say mom and pop, you had to define it. We didn't. We just said pharmacies.
I disagree, but that's okay.
You remember it was mom and pop?
Yeah, I think we had something about.
Yeah, we didn't want to put out our local pharmacies because of the.
And I'm sure it was an executive session, so we don't have any minutes at the time.
I don't think it was an executive session. I think we talked about it in committee and it was.
It would be litigation.
Small business.
Litigation would be executive session.
Once the court decides,
We
it's
just
where
had
the
a
money
discussion.
goes. It's the court's own.
Well, didn't Roger always say that the previous resolution that was motion that was passed was always good until the next one's
Oh,
passed?
that's one,
So
yeah.
this may supersede that one. Who knows?
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
I'm not going to, can I vote present?
There you go. Abstain.
Either way, it passes.
It doesn't affect the building.
Okay, so resolution AC. It should be for air conditioning, but it's not.
This one's just control complaint.
Yeah, this one here is about the Affordable Care Act, enhanced FMAP, and it's.
It's about the presentation the governor gave about the
Yeah.
budget, upcoming budget, and how we don't think it's a good idea.
State's gonna take that money.
Saying how we're gonna.
Have to pay $1.4 million more than we did.
So. For a second. Yes. Chairman?
I commented on this when it first came up. And it might be a mashed potatoes. 99% of all serial killers ate mashed potatoes within a month before they committed their first crime or something like that. But it seems like to me that we've had several of these, that all the upstate counties have done resolutions on, and it makes the downstate legislators do just exactly the opposite. And I just have to feel a little bit cautious about doing some of these resolutions. Because I think it galvanizes some of the downstate base to act against us.
Well, I think it's gonna be statewide this time because no county's on for this.
Well,
This is a bigger.
Well, it's 57 of the 62. That's what it-
Yeah, it's gonna be quite big. And I
Yeah,
actually
which is less than half of the,
Probably.
at least the.
So the bigger issue here is that there's a cap. And we're all in hopes that the cap is gonna stay in place. And we've been to the cap before, are real close. Yeah. So it's basically, as bad as it sounds, as awful as it is, this is really a one-time thing. It's, once you build this into the budget, if we have to, we don't know what's gonna come out of the budget. Once we build it in and we're at our cap, as long as that cap doesn't move, we're good to go. But
Which is not a guarantee.
it is not a guarantee. In fact, if we all swat the governor, maybe the governor takes the cap off.
That's another, but I don't think just us doing it is gonna
Well, I'm not arguing against doing it, I just, you know, this is cautionary.
let everybody know how it's portrayed.
I have a question. At the very bottom where it says the copies of this resolution goes to everybody. You have New York State congressional delegation, but the Congress doesn't decide how the state does it, because in this it says that it's basically to have a federal pass-through to the state. Now, the state wants to keep it. So why would the New York State congressional delegation, would they be able to decide
The
anything?
original
on it?
money's federal money.
They put pressure on them.
They put pressure on them that they don't get federal money if they take it away from the county.
It's federal money initially.
Yeah,
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, the federal directive was to share with the counties, so that's why we want the delegates to be informed.
And when you say congressional, that means both houses of Congress.
yes.
When we put gravy on mashed potatoes, we're
Well, with gravy, the soil might not come to light yet.
okay.
Cheese curds.
Okay, all in favor of the resolution, say aye. Carried. That's where somebody opposed. Very good.
I did want to put a little footnote after this one, that the second important one, that there's not a resolution in here, maybe I should have drafted one, but stay tuned. The other significant change that's proposed right now, they've again come even closer to wanting to have county share surplus from their tax auctions. So that's a significant change in our process. I won't bore you today with all the reasons why not to, but this is something that you may hear from me next month on, because there is a significant impact to our operations if that was to pass, because now you could have mortgage holders sitting back and letting the county become its collection agent and just making them whole from the auction proceeds over our lien. So, and it does not address the properties that you don't get your lien on. It does not identify what administrative costs you're allowed to recoup. So there's some significant hurdles in that piece of legislation as well. So stay tuned on that. I'd like to have a conversation with you about that at a future meeting. Pardon? Well, we do. It's going to become a defined.
It's whether they allow administrative costs at all, that's the problem.
They define what it is.
Okay. Resolution AD is resolution authorizing the implementation funding and for assistance under consent of the federal aid legislative program. For the bridge on Rockgate Way, and basically it's saying that the IDA will be responsible for the 5%. Is that where we're at? That moved by Mr. Hale.
No.
You get chilly in here also?
Do we have a motion in a second before we get to discussion? Moved by Jay, second. Cassie. Okay, discussion, Dana.
Where does it say IDA in this resolution?
It doesn't.
It
This
says right.
this is strictly a Marshall resolution.
Yeah.
Next month, you'll see budget amendments and authorization for the chairman to sign IDA. IMAs. This is just the Marshall piece. This is just the state and federal funding.
Okay, let me ask more questions if I can. It says result Washington County authorized to pay first instance 100%. And then the next line is $361. There's no way $361,000 is 100% of that project.
5%. That's 5%. That's the Martelli 5%.
The 361 is the design. This is not the
Only
whole
design.
project.
Right.
If I'm correct,
Okay.
now we have to pay the whole amount till Marcelli's fund comes through with that.
We front the money.
Yeah. With every bridge.
It says here that 361 is hereby appropriated. This resolution has no line items in the budget like most of them. Is this,
It will be,
where the county road, what's it come out
it
of?
will be next month.
But what would it be?
It will
County road?
be a brand new capital project. There'll be a project open for the bridge.
Oh, so it won't be.
Every time we have a major bridge construction, it opens as a new capital project.
Okay.
That will happen next month.
That way we hold everybody accountable.
So this allows a resolution for next month? Is that why we're doing this?
This allows the feds, so the feds need this resolution in place because on all bridge projects, they actually do the procurement. So the feds and a Marshall project, they go out and they vet the.
We're not getting way ahead of ourselves.
I'm sorry.
We're not getting way ahead of ourselves. There's gonna be a resolution next month that says the IDA is gonna make us whole.
Right, we're not ahead of ourselves. This is the
So
way
this,
it goes.
this
through
is, this is for
procurement
the, this is
feds.
to authorize the federal state fund.
And there will be an MOA saying the idea is pledged to commit 5%.
Okay, let me ask you a question. You are an agency. The IDA is an agency. Is the IDA
Public benefit corporation.
capable of condemnation, eminent domain?
Yeah, there's also where it would.
And because I always ask them these questions, is there any eminent domain on this?
No,
Could you, if you wanted to, could you do eminent domain? Are you?
no, because we own the property.
We own it. So.
Well, there might be a utility pole over on Mary's.
Actually, I can tell you, there's no utility pole coming down that road. It all comes in.
But you would like, okay. All right, thank you.
Whatever. I can show you the map.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Stay tuned until next month.
Doesn't even listen. It passed. Okay,
Can
then
I have an other about something in this packet a lot? It's a budget question.
Yep.
We added a lot, almost $175,000 to contingencies. We added to it. Rollover, public health, public safety, child car seats, rollovers. Is that very, very common that in the beginning of the year we add?
yes,
So when you do the budget and you put $450,000 in the budget for contingency, that's what you kind of want for the whole year.
well,
Or are you anticipating more money, or should it be less than 450,000?
no, there's a lot of anticipated costs in there that are coming. Like when we know in the past, when we've done contract negotiations, we know that it's gonna take a certain amount of money. Some gets put in contingency, some gets put in other funds so that you can pull that after it's settled, but you just assume they didn't know where it was all coming
Right, but my
from.
question is, when you do the budget and you put 450,000 in contingency, is that 450 what you think you need to do all that?
Yes,
But shouldn't it be less? Shouldn't it be like 300,000 if you know you're going to
we
gain?
don't know, we never know what we're gonna get or if any of those things are gonna happen. That's the reason we.
Well, today we did 175,000 more.
Right, sometimes that happens and sometimes that comes late in the year and your contingency's already gone and you're happy to get it back. So that's the reason we don't, we have no way of knowing exactly when it's coming or whether
I
it's.
know you
coming.
don't know exactly, but my point
Well, we
is,
don't know whether it's coming.
is that contingency line padded a little too much?
No, if anything, we've kept it low. We've been a lot higher before.
What have you been higher than 450,000 before?
I'd have to go back, but it's way back because we had some sincere problems. So.
So
I would just take this fund.
I don't know if this helps at all, but this is an issue that actually has been brought to light by Mr. Hicks in the past. It's almost a philosophical conversation. If you don't do it through a contingency, then you have to do it through fund balance. So it'll hit one of the two. So if you were to reduce your contingency account like you're proposing, the trade-off would be you'd have to go to fund balance for some of the things during the year. So it becomes a little bit of a philosophical. It all ends up in fund balance. But I think Mr. Hicks has tried to have this conversation a couple of times about what is our stance, the differentiating between
Right,
contingency.
there should be one of each.
Right.
Which one do you put in this category?
And
What do
if
you put in that
you move
category?
it from one, you're just affecting the other. They are a symbiotic kind of relationship.
Do we
I don't
ever
know
get
if
at the end of the year where the contingency is so low, we had to go to fund balance?
We brought it down to a couple $100, yes.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. A year ago, 2 ago, we had to go to fund balance for something.
The mental health costs sometimes
It will
are
probably
enough
do
to
that.
drain.
Yeah.
It was a simple question. Sometimes like you with the grant money, okay, that grant money is for a specific use.
Right.
Take, for instance, car seats. Okay, and all of a sudden you have this much money that you've gotten as a grant, you buy and purchase car seats for the families in the county. And then at the end of the year, there's so much money that's not distributed out for car seats. We can pull that into our budget, we don't have to.
No.
And remember, the only thing that goes back to contingency is personal services.
Right.
So
We can't take money for a grant for car seats and go back. I don't believe.
I think
go
we
back to
did.
what, to the state?
They can't go back to our general fund.
Oh, no, car seat money has to be used for car seats.
Yes,
That's exactly, that's the.
They're limited use, but and the only thing that goes to contingency are point ones that we've already budgeted.
Right.
So that money comes forward out to specifically still be used for car seats.
Yes, ma'am.
yes.
Yep, it can only be used for that purpose.
And that's why the rollover is because they get it in September and October and they don't have time.
So many of our grants now are on that October to September. So that's why, like, public health, a lot of their money is federal pass-through money, and all federal are October to September. So you're on a regular basis, see them roll forward. One thing that I hope is going to help the board, I apologize for dragging this out, but one thing that I hope is going to help the board, I've changed the way that we number grants now. So there used to be a generic 0.2 and a generic 0.4. Now each grant will be specifically numbered. So the first two digits of the code will be the year that it was issued. The second two digits will be whatever. So like the first grant 2023 will be labeled 2301, and then 2302 and 2303. So if that grant was to cover 3 years, you can intelligently look at all of the costs associated with that grant over however long the grant is. If it's a 2-year grant, you can have 2 years worth of history that is specific to that grant, rather than being muddied up in this one pool generic account that you got to start pulling and dissecting.
Most
That would
all
be really
those,
helpful.
and
I hope
most,
so.
yeah, most all of your federal monies that come through, they're specific and they can only be used for what they're specific.
But we just did grants, unused money went into the general fund.
No, it went into contingency because it
Well,
was
that's
for
in the gen-
personnel.
That's in the
But it
general
was
fund.
for personnel and personnel's already funded.
Right, only for.
That's why we
personal
do it. So like personal services, that's what he was referring to.
Is-
Because we have,
Is contingency in the general fund or not?
yes,
So unused grant money is going into the general fund.
but it's going exactly for what it was meant for. It was meant for personal services. We've already budgeted totally for our personal services, either through non-union or union contracts. So for that reason, it comes back to contingency and we don't change their salaries for that year.
So in the budget, if you expand the contingency line, there's a whole bunch of stuff where we just appropriated more money and that is reserved for go back into grant type use.
Yes,
All right, so when I look in the budget, it says 450,000. That isn't open for anything. There are certain specific lines in contingency.
no, the
Then
contingent,
how do you know to keep that money just for that type of use?
Because, so, I don't know if this helps, but what it's doing, it's replacing money that we took to give them the point when they need it. Because we budget for those salaries as part of the budget, they're offsetting revenue. So you're not giving general fund extra money, you're giving, offsetting the money that you took from general fund for salaries that are now being funded by a grant. That's why Matt, Mr. Higgs, has brought to the committee before a philosophical discussion about should it go through fund balance rather than contingency, because really the appropriated fund balance is the balancing mechanism when you pass a budget, not the contingency. So it is a little bit of a philosophical conversation.
But there's a lot of range of things that contingency works
But
with.
the salaries in that grant are specific to certain positions. And those salaries, you unfortunately or fortunately budget as part of the adopted budget without its offsetting revenue. So when the offsetting revenue comes in, you're now saying, okay, these salaries are funded by a grant. I didn't need to take taxpayer money to fund them. Could that go through fund balance? Absolutely, it could. And that's the conversation that we've toyed with a few times.
and if you remember a couple of years ago, the state got in hock and they decreased every grant you were getting by, was it 8%, 5%, some offbeat number. So if you had gone so close to where you would put that number in, you'd have been short whatever that percentage was. So this is what that really protects against, is if the grant doesn't come at all, or if they decrease.
Well,
their
these
value.
resolutions, there's not a 0.1 in any of these.
The one that has the contingency should be.
Well, okay, doesn't talk about a 0.1.
Let's just go into contingencies.
But the amount in the contingency, the amount going to contingency is the salary portion of
It's the
the
salary portion.
like I said, then you must be able to open up contingency in your laptop. There must be lots of lines.
Nope.
Well, then how do you know that that goes to a salary?
I don't, it's, the salary is already budgeted.
It's in the, well, it's in the actual grant.
So the
How
only
much was
thing that
for-
you could do different, Mr. Haff, is when you pass the budget, to put the revenue against it and hope that it's there.
Okay.
That's the only other way that you
Yeah,
could.
help me explain it. If you could look at K.
Yeah.
Instead of taking the unspent grant funds and putting all of it, increase the appropriation, putting all of it into grants equipment, which you should roll it over back into equipment, you're taking a big chunk, 27,000, into contingency.
Because
Is
that was,
why?
yeah, that was the part that was for personal services.
So what happened, here's the flow of it is like this. Public health gets a grant that's awarded to them for $53,000. That grant begins October 1st and runs through September. So the best they can do is 3 months, like 25% of that grant's the most they can spend. Because they've only got 3 months in that fiscal year, our fiscal year, to spend it. So what this resolution says is, okay, public health got an award of 52,000. And of that, at the end of the year, there was still 34,000 that they didn't spend. We're now saying out of that 34,000, this much was contractual, this much was equipment, because they have to submit a budget to the state, right? That says this is how we're going to spend the 52,000. So they can only spend it on the budget that they gave to the state for that grant.
Okay, which is explained in the whereas. It says carryover unspent funds 34,000, which 27 is for personal services.
So
That's how that all works.
Yeah.
So at the time you pass your budget in November, there is no way for the department to know what their unspent balance will be. So that's why we do this
Okay.
process. When they know the balance, they bring it to you. Unfortunately, the point ones have already been budgeted. And in theory, to Mr. Hick's point, in theory, you used appropriated fund balance as your balancing mechanism, right?
Yes.
But we as practice here have always gone back to contingency. You could just as easily reduce the appropriated fund balance when that revenue comes in and does the same, it would have the same effect. And if the contingency goes to zero, you would tap fund balance anyway. So there, to me, contingency is a piece of fund balance that you set aside for the unknowns in a fiscal year. I don't know if that helps.
Well, I didn't quite understand how that works. I do now. Thank you.
Yep.
It's educational for everybody. It's a good
Is it
question.
the cleanest? No, but it's what we got.
I won't remember it next month.
We'll do it again. Okay, so it's almost quarter after 11.
You want to hear about Whitehall?
Yeah, circle back to what, oh,
Sorry.
so
No, it's.
it would also be, so remember too, now there's a 2023 town and county bill out there. Any deal that we were to make on this parcel would be my recommendation that that is a separate. So there'd be a purchase price, but that bill would still be owed
For 23.
for 23, right? That would be included in the offer, right? That would be my understanding. Okay, so the base due on that property is $3,765.50. The interest and penalties amount as through the end of February is $5,922.90. So it depends on if you're looking at all the interest that's accrued on it, or if just what's on our books as a receivable. What's on our books as a receivable is the $3,765.
Is there a different number for fee? If you don't call the fee penalty anymore.
So
Is that a
the
different
fees in the $3,765, because that's actually on our books as a receipt. The amount that's on my books collectible is the $3,765,
And what's his offer?
41.
Even?
And pay the 2023.
And he would be responsible for the 2023, which is another $705. Yep. Those are the numbers.
So we're gonna make a motion to accept it here, and is it right now? Is that what we're looking at doing? What are we talking about doing?
So no action means I decline his offer,
Okay.
and it goes to the next auction in June or July as a leftover parcel. Unless you want to take action, in which case,
What did it bring in auction?
2,300.
Huh.
We're just to get it going. I'll make a motion to accept this offer.
I second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. We got,
I'll get a resolution to that for the packet.
so unless anybody wants to recess for a couple minutes, the capital plan, it's still 45 minutes from noon. If you want to recess for a couple minutes, we can, but if not, I'll move right into the capital plan. Anybody want to recess? Are we all good? Okay.
Keep going.
Everybody got this piece of paper?
No, it's coming.
Okay.
All right.
Word for nurse class. It's got more concessions. Budget tight, really. So before we get into the content, I want to go over a couple of stylistic changes to see how you feel about them. First thing I've done is I've added a status column, because one of the most common questions when we talk about the capital plan is where are we? So I've tried to add a little note. Is it in process? Is it pending? Is it not started? Where are we in that specific project? I've also added at the very bottom, you see the smaller box on the front page. I've given you the cash in, so there's two projects in play here, the capital 125, the capital plan, and capital project 130, which is the budgets. So what I thought would be helpful to you as well is, this is the cash in the project. This is how much of the cash is committed to the budget already, and this is how much of the cash is uncommitted. And then I've given you the contingency in each of the projects that's been set aside but not appropriated to a specific project yet. So I thought the cash on hand and the contingency on hand would be important pieces of the puzzle as well. So I've included them, and rather than give you just a flat cash number, I've let you know how much of the cash you've already said, go ahead and do that. So I thought the committed versus uncommitted would also be helpful to you as well. The back of the page now has two separate boxes that shows for the two projects. The in-process box are things that you have already given a budget amendment to and pulled the trigger on. That shows what their current budget is, their encumbrances are, expenses are unexpended. So these are the capital projects that are in motion right now in various stages, whether it's infancy or towards the end. And then the last box are the projects that were on this front page and have fallen off because they're completed. So I thought it would also be just as useful to see some of the stuff that has been done. So those are some stylistic things I took the liberty of changing myself. If there's something you want to see different, I'm wide open, but I hope those categories are helpful in the discussion.
now on the completed portion,
Yep.
would it be possible to give the year they're completed and the total that was spent on those
The
completed,
total expense is in there.
on each one, but not in its entirety by year?
Oh, you want the years that they were completed?
Well, yeah, could we get the years that they were completed in the entirety?
And make it across 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, that's
If you just want the year they were completed,
just the year they completed them.
it might not tell the whole story, but at least it's.
At least you'd know that it, because you look at that and you're like, we completed all those last year? No, some of them were completed before.
No, just one was 125 started, one was 130 started.
Right, maybe what,
2018?
yeah,
Okay. And then since then.
you're right. So that would be, it would just be kind of good to know that we accomplished.
I'm open to,
I just want to know that we actually accomplished something and how long it took to accomplish it.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
no, I want to cross it off, say, let's move on. I want to go from now forward. I don't care what's done is done. I know it's good for you as a budget officer, but I don't care whether it's completed in 19 or 20.
Well, no, but I think it's important to our constituents that they know that we actually accomplished something too, right?
Well, Dan and I don't care because we're not running again, but you probably think that's important. I meant how bigger.
And then on the front, I'm looking at cash committed and cash uncommitted in the contingency number. So is uncommitted coming out of that contingency number? Am I reading that wrong?
So what's in contingency would be a factor of what's in the uncommitted.
Right.
But an uncommitted
They don't
cash should be
equal,
higher.
so that's why I'm,
You've earned interest on the property.
okay,
Normally, it would be a factor of the interest.
okay, so that's why I was trying to make sure what, I knew what the differential was, okay.
The uncommitted in each case should be higher.
I like the format.
Just a question of the colors now again. Sorry.
Okay, so I did not include a key to the colors and probably should have because it is helpful. So the green was cash on hand from a previous deposit, and the gold was ARPA funds. So the colors aren't as important anymore because we now have actual columns with headings. So that the gold that you see on the front page was relates to the 600,000 that was sent over in 2021 from the American Relief Plan monies. But because I have an actual ARPA column now, probably the colors aren't as important.
So what's
They meant something when this was developed and probably can go away now.
So what's the same as coming for?
Yeah, 150.
But he likes it. It's a pretty color.
Steve, at the very beginning,
It's in his back pocket instead of his front pocket.
That's pending.
his vacation fund.
That's called dare to say retirement. Hang on one second, I'll look at the old form to see if it's.
Look at those in different colors. The blue is total, so that's good.
I hope not.
Spoken by a real farmer.
There's no time.
That's related to a resolution that was passed back in 21. So that was related to a specific deposit
Okay.
that was transferred from general to the capital plan. So the salmon one definitely has no significance anymore.
Okay,
Other than that's the last of those projects that was funded out of that resolution.
okay.
But like I said, with the column structure now, probably none of the color is any additional use.
Except for it makes it extra. So it's more important.
You should stick out the tongue.
We only have pertinent comments.
Good job.
Remember that.
Under the ARPA money, you've got, I assume that's yellow or orange, I don't know, what did we call it?
I like gold.
Gold. You've got two in there that aren't covered.
Are those from the first year?
It's because I just added them and didn't cover them.
But that's ARPA money that's,
In 2021, you transferred $5 million to the barn project. Those two represent that $5 million.
That was in the first tranche, right?
Yes, sir. Ignore the colors.
okay.
Nothing to see.
Take colors off and make everything same.
Right.
So the colors will be removed.
Well, I like the grand total color.
Just keep the font color the same too, okay? Don't be changing.
From colors back to years, okay, and like the past years, like with any construction project, there's like a lifetime warranty. And so by doing this, I kind of created a template for the future, because a roof might only last 20 years. If you have a date on there.
Which is what Brian's asking.
Right, 20 years down the road, you know that you're gonna revisit that project again.
Even if it fails, you know, you're gonna call them up and say, hey, you completed this thing.
You would include the warranty on the warranty, yeah.
We're still meeting every day, and not seeing the other guys.
So the point is, the things that are in process, the things that we're doing, that we're committed towards, and then the things that we plan to do and what Al has for funding towards that, so that when you come to us and say, we need to go out and borrow X, it's for this on here. We are hoping it would come in at this price, but it's coming in at that price. And we have an idea that Dana may think, I think there's money in that capital fund. And then we find out, oh, no, we got to borrow $3 million to do that. We sort of have that information now, so they get hit with it later on.
Right.
And then if you say, we can do this project, but we got to borrow $3 million, then Jay may say, well, let's look at this project a little closer. I think that's the discussion.
That's what we're
And I
asking.
think the timing is important because Matt Jones is gonna start coming to whatever committee with some asks in the very near future.
And that's
You
a,
have
that's
to
a
know.
fluid ask, because
It's a fluid
this
ask.
isn't static, this is gonna keep changing, right?
And he's got a placeholder on here for $15 million for barn construction for this property. That is strictly a placeholder. No decisions have been made by this board or any other. It's strictly his best guess. If you were to build a structure here, that's what it might run. I have it in the borrowing column, but we may invest more money from the surplus into the plan. This, like you said, is food.
Living down.
The $1 million from 2022 has been moved into here. The money budget in 2023 budget has not been moved into here, is that correct?
The 2023 money is not in here yet.
Right, that's still in the budget that can be moved sometime in 2023.
So if you look at the project cash column for the 40 N barn, you see the $1 million from last year.
Okay, but there's still, what, 600 and something thousand we budgeted in 2023 to go into the capital plan.
That is not moved
That
yet.
is not,
Correct.
that can change, that can go up or down any way we want to.
Yes.
You're trying to stay with your team.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Any questions about the actual content, I would defer to Matt Jones. I'm simply bringing you the fiscal look. Like I said, the ones that are, some things are in here as placeholders that he hasn't come to you yet for actual board action. You know, there's things on this campus that no decisions have been made.
Are the 2023 items the trains up to station? And all of it? That's my question, I guess.
No, because you haven't made any decisions yet on Board of Election machines. I don't think you've done anything with the St. Paul's roof yet. So if you look at the 2023 list and compare that to the in-process list on the back, that may, but I've also got in the status column, you see a couple that say not started, not started.
Yeah.
So hopefully between the comments and the back chart, there's a relationship that makes sense.
I don't know where the conversation took place, but the Board of Election machines is the best place for those on the capital plan? Or is it best to have a line under IT, or I'm sorry, under Board of Elections like IT does with their,
Yes. Because I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, capital project 125 would include anything we ever do. We'll never have capital project 126 or 128. So this is everything, and it shouldn't be. This should be like on this campus building something, or at a highway barn building something. Right, because I assume we've had 124 capital projects before this. They closed out. The way this looks, if we include board election machines and everything else, 125 will live forever.
Yes,
We'll live for,
that was the intention when it was created.
yeah.
And so if we wanted to build like a new jail, for example, 15, 20 years from now, that will still be,
125.
it won't be a whole new capital project?
No, it would be my recommendation on something like that, that we do like we did with the barn. The barns have their own capital project. The bridges have their own capital project. So there are things that rise to a level that are large enough that we put in this. So even the $15 million barn that's the placeholder here, if you were to pull the trigger on it tomorrow, that wouldn't live in 125, that would live in 136.
Okay,
So
So
what,
depending on the size of the project would justify whether or not it got its own.
because 135 is just the debt service to borrow.
So
I mean, 130 is just the borrow.
130 is just the barns. They were large
Barns,
enough
I
that
thought
we
you
gave
said
them their
barns.
own,
yeah,
right?
so 125 is ongoing replacements and
They're your
upgrades.
rolling 5-year
Yeah.
needs,
To keep
capital
that.
needs.
So that brings up Melissa's question, is that we had discussion with Board of Elections in ARPA, and Al brought up philosophically, these are things that need to be replaced X number of years, 10
Should
years,
be
12
in
years, 15
They're
years.
gonna keep
Do they
that.
belong in the capital plan? Or do we take a one-shot hit now out of ARPA, pay for them, and then make sure they're included 15 years from now? Or this committee should decide where that lives. So we decide whether what we have for broadband is a little bit less or a little bit more, depending on where BOE lives. But you have a philosophical idea.
Philosophically, I think that there should be a separation between the capital plan and how you fund it. So there's things that, like, we don't even have we know what the 5-year tip is right now. We know the bridges that we're gonna do in the next 5 years. To me, our 5% is still a capital need and affects our finances over the next 5 years. I'd love to see the bridges that we know are coming on here. So the 5-year capital plan should be a look at our capital needs, capital C county-wide, over the next 5 years. Where they're funded can be a different conversation. So you could include new servers for IT in your capital plan, even if they were funded in IT. So there is a demarcation between the plan and who's paying for it. At least it can be. So I think all of your capital needs should be in the plan, even if they live someplace else, philosophically. That's my 2 cents.
So when you give us the money reports, you break it down into separate groups.
Right.
Could you do, if you wanted to include all of that, keep this one preserved because it's more constructional, and then, include the other ones in separate things at the bottom, and then if you
So-
want to run a total somewhere around another page, so don't mix in the middle of these lines.
Right,
So
don't
what I-
load it.
So what I would propose, if you're open to all of the capital needs being in here, this column that says capital project 125 or 130, could it just as easily have an IT? It could just as easily have a DPW. And then there could be a third, a key down here that takes all of the 125 projects and gives you a total, all of the D projects and gives you a total, all of the IT projects gives you a total, so you know for each type of project what the funding is for each category. If you wanted this plan to be all inclusive of all the capital needs.
I was thinking more in terms of,
So
like you have this page for what we've been looking at, then you have a page for
For
the TIF
IT.
funding, and then maybe one for IT.
Yeah.
Separate them out that way a little bit, so it doesn't blur up as much.
which is kind of the way to run now.
The only downside for me is that you don't have a global look.
Well, then you have a
Well, you could have a summary page
summary page,
that
but
put
break
all
down.
those 3 pages together, yeah.
As
Just to
long,
be like IT.
as long as there's a final
department.
document where everything's lit, because that's the end goal. So any capital plan should have all your capital needs. But there's no reason you couldn't have a master document and then,
These break. these pages.
like the children-parent relationship. There could be 3 children capital plans that then populated the master capital plan. Yeah, they could
Because I
absolutely
think
do
if you
that.
had one of these too, when you mentioned the bridges, I'm thinking there's a lot of people that maybe aren't as aware of how that works in the TIP program and how everything is spaced out. So if you had one of these similar for that would help show. the
You see
cost.
these bridges one at a time, right?
Right.
You
But
pass
if
these
have-
Marcelli resolutions, and then all of a sudden, in 30 days, the budget officer's got to figure out where the 5% is going to come from.
Mhm.
Because if he's drawn his county road fund down to $500,000 fund balance, and she gets awarded 3 bridges that are $500,000 each, he
No
now
trouble.
has no idea where the 5% is coming from.
Right, so
So
that's what I'm saying.
we need
Not
we
everybody
need to know
is
where
aware
we're
of that.
going in the next 5 years.
And so in the past, and this is why we look at it globally like this, in the past, you have your peaks and valleys on where your fund balance is throughout the county. And when I first came in, all the tips were funded. But when 2008, 9, and 10 hit, we had no choice but to empty every fund there was, and we've never got back to repopulating all those funds. But it's another way to safeguard what, like the governor's budget might do to us now. If you had some of those things funded, and then all of a sudden you get crashed with a big number in Medicaid, you aren't going without county needs because of that, because you've already funded those. It just keeps everything a little more straight in line with what you're trying to accomplish as a county.
So let's go to IT for a second. We've had this conversation, IT was in capital fund, then we said, no, take it out because there were renewable resources over X period of
It
time.
has a finite timeline.
And that's really the same with Board of Elections.
So
Right.
for elections, so I think part of what we have to do is define what's going to be capital, what's going to be replacement. Because now we're funding replacement in our budget.
Right.
Not in the budget, IT's funding the budget, not in the capital fund. We took that other capital fund. So I think we have to have a definition of what's gonna be capital, what's not gonna be capital.
Yeah. A new laptop terminals versus a new building. One is
The laptop costs and the
recurring.
portable election turnover machine, that never goes away.
Right.
It just comes right back all the time. And we hope the roof at least goes 20 years.
And the purpose of a capital plan is so that 10 years from now, you don't get hit with another $500,000
A surprise,
bill that
right.
you didn't see coming. That's the purpose of
But,
capital.
right, but I was just wondering, maybe Ed, that it's just a continuous in those budgets and those in departments, and whether we use it or whether it carries over to another year.
Because where it comes in handy is if you have to pull the trigger on how much you want to contribute. So the capital plan should tell you what is the investment each year that you need to make in the plan. So if you don't, in my opinion only, you don't want to ignore Board of Election machine replacements. You don't want to ignore IT replacements, even though they're not in the capital project. Those, you're gonna have to budget for them.
There's still a plan.
So if every 10 years you've got to turn over servers, if every 10 years you've got to turn over voting machines, if every 7 years you've got to turn over plow trucks, you may want to know what is the monetary number that you've got to plan for every year. Because you're a big proponent of multi-year budgeting.
Oh, yeah.
This helps with that process.
This is, we have to define what's capital, not capital. Now, what we're doing with the servers and everything else, we have a replacement plan every single year, so we're not doing it all at once. That was the problem. All the replacement costs at one time, especially when we're replacing every single laptop, desktop in 1 year.
And maybe you want to set a threshold of $250,000. You could set a threshold that defines.
And even if you look at some of the capital costs, when I look down here, we have capital costs of, for the new safety CAD system, $1 million. Well, the way most software is being licensed today is not on a one-time purchase. The maintenance cost is being on an annual cost that includes maintenance and rental of the software.
There's a subscription service.
Subscription services. So you have to look at that and see which is best to take care of that.
And Sean,
Yeah, halfway down on the page, Meals on Wheels Sheriff Building, $800,000. And $100,000 grant, but the grant isn't until 2024. The two things are, number one, I can't pull that up, so could somebody tell me what that
okay,
is?
that was Meals on Wheels, and then sheriff needs space for more
It's all the
administrative.
storage for public
You
have-
safety, the sheriff.
You haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, and, but it was announced last year, I know, because Matt Simpson was in, and he's the one that's providing $100,000 for that building.
Who is?
Matt Simpson, the assemblyman.
Okay, and now what is it? Is it gonna be a complete standalone building?
One or two standalone buildings, we don't really know at this point.
Is this coordinated with where we removed the trailer?
Yes.
Why that?
Yep,
Same area.
Okay,
it's all that big picture, but like, it's to be determined until we decide what we actually need before we start.
So in essence, I think philosophically is you develop the budget. So you can say, listen, over the next X number of years, we're gonna include plow trucks in the budget. I'm gonna budget for those, so they don't need to be here.
Right, and that's what we've
Or
done.
IT, I can live with it in the budget and we're gonna go philosophically. Now, X number of years from now, a different budget officer may something different. I don't think it's, we put it in pen now, this is in, this is out. It's sort of up to the guy that we elected to make those calls and make sure that's in the budget or not, with input from the rest of the board. But that's sort of your call to some degree, Brian.
Yeah, and we kind of went through this before, like David said, we went through and we moved IT out for that reason. But it
Yeah,
doesn't mean the report shouldn't include what IT is. I think that's where the treasurer was. I don't think the treasurer wants them back in the capital project.
Right.
But he wants the capital plan to show what all those things are that you're constantly replacing.
But if you said, listen, the budget is just so tight, we're gonna screw down our cap. I think you guys need to move some of the IT stuff out long-term into the capital plan, and then you do that in a couple of years or whatever it
So
is.
that's definitely more eloquent way for what I was trying to say, because what I want to avoid is the one times that sneak up on. I don't want to get hit with $500,000 in 5 years that we should have saw coming.
And that's
So
why I.
the recurring IT replacement is a different, we know that now, right? So I want to avoid things that are like, oh, well, we need, $500,000 boiler. Well, we should have known that was end of life 5 years ago, right? So you want to take out the one times that sneak up on you, and all of a sudden, we're deciding whether we're appropriating fund balance or borrowing money for something that we should have seen coming in the plan. I guess that's my,
You're right, it's the difference in philosophies, like, remember when Dan did the budget, he wanted to use excess in
sales
the,
tax.
no, it was excess in interest. It was when interest was so much and we were gonna put that towards the capital plan,
Right.
but then interest went to hell. And so then I tried to come back and say, let's use a set number, and then the interest will fluctuate up and down, and we'll go with our fund balance, and we'll still always have money there to do capital stuff.
And I may say, listen, sales tax is up $5 million
Right.
last year. One of you should make, hey, listen, we should move 2 million of that into,
And that's,
and then have that discussion here amongst
and
all of
that's
us.
why
and
we're
say,
having this discussion today.
To make that
because
happen.
all those things, we're trying to find out where the money goes, what the growth is, where to put that growth, at what set number we need to keep for a fund balance for the overall picture of the whole county.
When Dave's power line comes through, the county's gonna reap funding off of that. Now, you can use that for debt service towards the building of the bar, whatever. Those discussions should be constant and not like visit this once a year. Because Matt's, I'm sure, world is changing all the time about his priorities. We just should all be involved and up to date and not get hit on it, that's all.
Yep. So is that kind of what everyone wanted to see out of the capital plan today? And Matt, did you want to give us kind of an update of what you're thinking in terms of the Meals on Wheels building and, you know, what the thought process is? We haven't it hasn't really come out public yet, what we're looking at, because we don't know exactly what our needs are.
I don't know exactly what we're looking at yet, but the goal would be to house Meals on Wheels somewhere other than where they are right now, which is temporarily over at the Bridgewater building. When the nurses move over there, we're gonna need to move them out at some point. Some other ideas have come up. The sheriff's talked to me about, you know, space shortages that he has with new employees and more detectives and everything else down there, and a few of the new laws that come up that make them hold guns for longer. So their space is just going like this. Right now, we have the investigators in Woos designed as a storage, almost cold storage is where their offices are. So he's requested that, which would be about 2,000 square feet. Meals on Wheels, about 2,000 square feet. So an original idea would be a 4,000 square foot building where we demolish the film trailer, which is on now. So that building would house those offices, those two departments, and quite possibly right where our storage barn is now, the one's kind of fallen in, we would put some sort of cold storage building with multiple bays for multiple departments, which would allow us to get rid of that one, which both of them are in pretty bad shape, which we all know, we've seen. That, this 10,000 foot, I haven't done any real work to get to numbers or to really the true square footages. This is just an original thought. I haven't even vetted my own thought yet. So, you know, it's a little early to present that as a project. We usually have come with more than just a.
And then when Matt's doing this stuff, he can report the government ops every couple of months. And when we're talking about the barns, we can report DPW every couple of months. So we're sort of thinking about this all year long as things change and move forward. That's all. We're on the same headspace.
I think the plan is to do my homework between now and government ops on that area down there, so I can present something to you at this government ops. We're just not there yet.
Melissa?
I think Matt will answer it at government ops, but we had talked once about having one big building, right? And then the possibility of having Meals on Wheels in one separate building.
So
I guess that's
a
still.
few things that come up. Original idea would be, you know, one of my original ideas that I did, I think I've changed, is an office with the attached storage. Due to the limitation of the space that's there, would make it a little bit hard right where the trailer was to have just one building. And another thing is, we have an opportunity at a grant that would provide us 100,000. And we're not far enough down the road, like Meals on Wheels, we know the need. And I think that'd be a slam dunk to get that grant. So if we kind of downscale it to just that office building, I could probably get the grant done from Melissa in time, you know,
and give her enough detail to try to get that money. Whereas, and then the cold storage could just be a separate building, could be a pole barn style building, which is much cheaper, rather than doing one big facility.
But then the officers you talked about, sheriff's department,
I'd
they,
ask. So I think I could probably, you know, it still could be the adult nutrition program, 2,000 square foot with the bathroom. The sheriff's, if his detectives were to move in there in a separate 2,000, we can model it like our barns where you have a shared break room, a shared bathroom, so you're cutting down on what you need. I mean, that's just trying to find efficiency with, if you're gonna build something, let's try to kill more than one bird with a stone. Although it gets a little bit hairy if you're trying to apply for a grant and you're making it a big project, they need something now, so it's easier to narrow in.
We had, John Roselle's leaving, but a while back, we had a subcommittee on how to build buildings over there. It was Terry Middleton, John Roselle, myself. Maybe Kevin Hayes was the administrator back then. And we had to meet a lot of work, and we kind of finally decided whatever would be built, the best idea would be like a Morton building. You could buy a building already kind of made, all the panels, and then you contract somebody to erect it. But it was like a Morton building.
Sure.
The commercial kitchen over there is used by both the jail and the Meals on Wheels. Would that be affected by these decisions?
That would be actually, yeah, sure, it's affected in a good way. We're, it's where they were before, we're moving them closer,
Yeah.
That's the idea of putting them down there, is just going, and it's enough area. Remember, the adult nutrition program does require a lot of parking because of the amount of drivers they have. They have the carpool cars plus their own, so they take up quite a bit of a parking area, every day.
What
I'd say
timeline,
20 to 5 vehicles almost.
what timeline are we up against with moving the nurses? So OFA has to get out of there, or the Meals on Wheels.
I think I have to call back today. I just got the message yesterday. I have to do my research. There might be one more resolution that we're going to need that I'll bring to you to make the final application. So we've sent it in, we've heard back, looks like everything's good. They're asking for another resolution. I need to read it a little bit more in detail, and I think we already made the resolution through the full board. I'm not positive because I haven't done the research, but I think we did during COVID. And then it all kind of shut down. I think that resolution would be good enough for them, but I'll find out and I'll let everybody know.
what did that resolution state? Like what?
The resolution gave us pretty much, I think, permission. I haven't read right into the detail, but it was just to apply for it. Like, basically the backing that, hey, this is the plan that we're going with to move our public health department. And I think we did that. I really think we did that. I just haven't. Had
So what I'm trying to figure out, if we got 6 months to move.
Yes, because there's gonna be a decent size, construction project with the bathrooms and rooms to even be able to move them there. And then moving them there is another staged,
But does Meals on Wheels have to be moved out of
No.
there when you?
So I think we basically told Tina was, you're gonna have to give up that space to start with. You'll get it within a year, I could almost probably say, but you're gonna have to give up that space to start, which might be they have to use, the shared break room, or this or that, or not have a conference room of their own. They have to go to the other end of the hall
Yep.
for a while, but it's nothing they can't work around. Or maybe they have to leave their files, some of the stored files over in this building until they move, then the files come over.
My thought was, channeling my inner Dana half when he says, when government gets money and finds money, what do they do with it? They spend it. Now we have a list of things that we have needs for. We have a path on how these things are funded. And when that comes up, we don't say, well, no, we already have a roadmap to tell us where we're going. That was the big picture I was kind of hoping we could all talk about.
And I think that's kind of where you've led it, and I appreciate that.
Right. I think you can answer my question. Under project cash, Now, that's actual money set aside for those projects.
Committed is, uncommitted is there, but not set aside for it.
Well, everything is kind of a round number until you get down to 2025, the DPW shop Fort Edward barn. You got an exact number right there down to $2. I thought that was strange. And was that some money that was just left over in your mark or?
Yep. If the colored box wasn't there, we probably wouldn't draw attention to it. But that's part of an old resolution from 21, part of the plan from 2 years ago. There was a specific deposit made into that project and there were certain projects that it funded. If that project just happened to be, there wasn't enough money to fund all of it. So that's how much was left to fund that project. And if you go to the right, you'll see that there's 975 unfunded.
Right.
Right, so that's just the amount that was left in that deposit.
Okay, thank you. Just trying, I wasn't, to me, that was strange, right down to $2.
Yeah, it was related to a specific deposit, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you.
It's like the money that we got into the capital fund off the budget, that's a weird number, but it was a leftover number, it's like
Right.
566,000.
Yeah, it's whatever was left.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the budget number that Brian alluded to earlier, that was originally attached to interest. I think that's the deposit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take 566, it doesn't have to be around it.
No.
Yeah, because I always round up, so.
And we need to forge a path forward in how these things are, because everything here aged at one time because the building was built all at once.
And you never know, all going along through these, some of us may not be here to go through all of these. So,
Or even
Are you
bring your
counting
budget to
days,
the
man?
meetings.
Very good, so have we got a good pathway, is this where we kind of wanted to be?
Sounds good.
I think that my only question, and I don't know if it's for this committee or for your work group, but, you know, Matt and that team is gonna need some answers. So there's a lot of pending trigger points that will need decisions at some point. Whether that starts with your group and comes here, or at some point this group has that conversation. Because so much of what's in this plan, you know, for Matt specifically, he can't plan 27 until certain decision points are made in 24, because again, with, you know, the Meals on Wheels building is a great example. Is it one building? Is it two buildings? Or do you want no building? Do you want another $10 million building D? There's decision points the capital B board will have to make before he can make any, you know, sensical decisions on what to even bring you. You know, if you knock down Perry Street, Olive Street, Highway Barns, Annex 1, if you knock everything down on this campus and have a clean slate, what's next? Are you putting up a highway barn? Are you putting up a building D? Both. So there are some trigger points that at some point soon will have to be made, because what we do in 24 and 25 is going to affect significantly the next 10 years, right? So again, not for today, but at some point, there are some significant trigger points that have to be decided.
Well, I think the actual planning has to come through government ops, because that's where Matt's under, and then it gets here automatically. And the only thing we may take up is different ways of funding, but I think everything's gonna come through government ops.
But her work group may be the first place to vet it, then government. ops. I
Take
don't
it by
know.
chunks. It's
Yep.
been, you know, that seems to work good, is to bring it by little chunks and have discussion on this, and then I think it helps Matt get a little bit of a perspective on which way to go from, you know, throwing out ideas, and then you move them on, and then he brings them to government ops.
Because as you've seen with the barn, sometimes from your decision point to fruition, it's 3 years. So
Yes.
we need to start making some
Well,
significant.
what numbers you have for the two barns, when the bids come back, may say, well, this plan's completely changed now, we better change 27 and 28.
Well,
Absolutely.
that's,
Or they may come in and you say, geez, you know, now we can do this too.
Bingo.
You don't know which way it's gonna go.
because it's said repeatedly, this is a living document. It's constantly
What's good
changing.
about this is that we're looking at the whole picture, and you're not getting led down one road that's, oh, well, yeah, we did that because you're gonna get this. No, we need to talk about it all at once.
Now, I remember at one point we were talking about a master plan for the campus, this area.
Yep,
And
that's under,
Huh?
It's all part of it.
That's
And that's all.
Yeah,
that's part of our working group's plan.
Exactly, but I mean, is there a,
Everybody's pointing fingers, like, you get it, huh?
is there a
Yeah.
complete plan? booklet?
No.
Oh,
No,
And
No, and
actually,
it's-
Matt,
Automatic.
Matt has a placeholder in here for an actual master plan that the board has never pulled the trigger on. If
So
you
there's gonna
wanted
be,
a, if you wanted a formal, quote unquote, formal master plan, there's a placeholder in here with that. But I think that you can do a lot of it yourself.
right, and you have to take, like, you have to take steps before you go to create a master plan. It's not like sit down, we're gonna do that tomorrow. It's like,
But if you know that the end goal is a highway barn on this campus, that's a huge decision.
But the,
If you know that, then the things that lead up to that are easier.
well, we actually hired a firm to do that and got directed.
But you can bring up the D word.
We got sort of directed it in a way that we didn't understand, and so we just sort of did that again, and so we need to sit down and figure out for ourselves what we want, not to have someone come in and tell us this is what we should do based on.
Which is why I say you can do a significant amount yourself.
sometimes we do need experts.
that, you're getting at it. We've done a bunch of small studies over the time. We have that information, so a lot of it just bringing it back up and presenting it. And then once we know the direction, I can present, this, but right now it would be a waste of money to hire somebody to come in and do everything that we've already done when we don't have a path what we want yet. So we're just not there yet, but most of it is probably stuff I would be just bringing to you at committee and then.
But on the other hand, to give credit to where we have come, there have been steps already taken,
Yeah,
right?
Oh,
Like we
yeah.
plan on putting public health over Burgoyne. You already demolished Belknap building, like it's starting to happen, it's just little steps.
that's right.
Well, the availability we're going to change the need over here in terms of time, because we have a place to move things.
Before we're done and you close out, I just have one more thing to bring. That's not really that subject, but it's the Ford and barn. Al knows, he just sent Larry Eltrowitz my way. For the bonding, we have to have an MOU. So we did. We did one, we passed it. One thing that it kind of misses in there, he's asking for is the agreement on the property itself. And him as the town council is telling me that basically, I'm gonna send him what we have to make, but it looks like reading it myself, we just need something more specific to the property. They're looking at it, you're gonna build a county building on the town property. And we're gonna loan you money to do something on, Fort Ann town property. Where's the agreement that you always have access to it? There's a lot of detail in there. I didn't really see, I'll have Dan look at it today for me. If it's in there enough, or we need to amend that MOU a little bit, but that's coming up, and I know the time frame on what Al has, I don't know how it will get through if we have to amend the MOU.
So I've talked to the town's attorney and we're probably not gonna make the March deadline, so if we need to slow down, we can.
Yeah,
We're gonna do it as a separate borrowing is kind of where we're landing
I
now.
talked to Larry this morning.
I would rather have a second borrowing than to rush this thing through and
Well,
finally.
it's not the borrowing agreement, we could get the borrowing agreement, it's that one little.
MOU.
But it's all interconnected.
Yeah, right. What
I'm
you
not gonna
know, we
borrow
don't
money
have that
until-
yet, which we're gonna get it, which he would be involved to give you what you need, he needs for that end of it, but. In reverse, our other one, I think needs to be.
Because I don't definitely want to sign any bonding at all until all the agreements are in place. That would be
Yeah.
silly.
But is there a reason that we would need full board approval on that in February for you to even get that done in March, April, May? You know what I mean? That's what I don't know.
And I don't know if we need full board approval to amend that MOU or not, I think we did that out of the committee, didn't we? With Fort Ann, that's what I'm asking, I would have to look, like I said, I just talked to him maybe an hour ago, so. I'm not start digging in, but I don't know what committee that would come out of.
Public Works, right?
Well, we've done everything in the house or here.
It's been through building and grounds.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all been through government.
Barn.
Yeah.
Dan,
Well, Matt, I want to change the subject back to moving the nurses down to Burgoyne. When they're moved out of there, what will be left in that building for usage?
cooperative extension.
Cooperative extension is still in there.
Well, and wasn't there plans for something for cooperative extension or not?
There was ideas, there was never,
Oh, that's as far as it went.
It's philosophical.
that supposedly they are looking to move out of there themselves, so we haven't really worried.
Well, I thought they were coming down to Green. I thought that was-
Well, that was the idea, and that's what they want.
Well, let's say they did do that. Move somewhere.
Yeah,
Would you shut that building down and turn the heat off?
yeah, I agree, I was.
Dan, it would be gone.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
That building would be gone.
Yeah.
That's part of the.
Well, and I understand that, but I can remember back when Sarah Eidelman was here. And Bobby actually brought it up too about the facade and the importance of the front of that building. I wouldn't say anything is locked in stone because there was a lot.
That was originally.
We've been talking about it because there wasn't agreement.
But I think
It was-
as part of
It
the
was the
county,
back,
They told me I was full of beans, so.
what's been, our group has discussed, Dan, is maybe that part would add some historical or whatever use to the county, but the back all the way up through, at least to the,
It's all addition.
And the front is what costs us a lot of, I mean, it all costs us a lot of money, but that's where the, with the old.
That's where the
facade,
maintenance
that's where the black
cost is.
mold is that we have to get rid of all the time and, have somebody come in, that's really creates a lot of problems, that's what floods. That's where, that's an issue, I mean.
There's a point where.
I think, this is just my opinion, a nice picture memorialized downstairs would be awesome.
yeah,
And Dan, if you're trying to build something else there, whether it's a new garage or whatever, it's sitting right in the middle of.
Oh, I'm not supporting anything. I'm just saying there's decisions that we drop things because we couldn't get a consensus. And if that building, everybody moves out, we've got to start building a consensus before we can get going again, because that's the first building that you'll have to reach an agreement on, whatever it is.
It really died, but we weren't that far along to really dive into those needs yet. We weren't far enough along. We are getting closer, you're right, to having to make that decision.
And that's one of those trigger points I'm alluding to. that-
We just won't let Matt have vocalism.
How many years? Right.
No,
It started,
Nothing changed.
right,
I see nothing.
and here we are.
It used to be a
Okay,
workman's
so our-
schoolhouse where loadings
I think we can put a fork in
and-
it. I think this is well done. I don't.
We'll bring that MOU to government ops maybe, or we'll just,
Unless Larry needs something sooner, if there's,
and I'll talk to Al about. the
I don't want to
timeline.
close the door on that before
It's
one
not-
does meet. If it's
We're
not-
engineering it, so
Yeah.
we're engineering it there. If we miss something, we need to get it done sooner than later, whether it's for bonding or for my purposes of building. I mean, we're gonna go out to bid, I'm hoping, in the next month, at least for the building, or two, I'll bring that to government ops, I'm hoping. Set deadlines and you set goals.
It's good.
Hoping.
And hopefully, if this is the way we're going, all these highway buildings at some point are gonna need replacing.
The third priority, I mean, and this I've talked to Deb and DPW over and over, the third priority was really right here.
Yeah.
It's the garage. We did Middle Falls and Fort Ann, if you remember the history of this, she changed up the priority because of those buildings were bad. So when she came on, she said, these buildings are worse than this one. Then we're moving forward with those. And, her only concern is, I hope I didn't, take away the need that this building is in bad shape over here too. It's just the third priority. That's the
Right now.
Right now.
You could bring 3 more in the next 2 years that kind of bump that back.
Right.
Depending on what's a critical.
I don't think they are out buildings of DPW unless something happened,
No.
this would be-
No.
but there could be
Rooftop units. and-
something,
In the-
you're right, something to that effect. could
And the other
change.
thing is changed is our price of electricity, the energy efficiency, all those things that are gonna be important that will cost us a lot of money if we don't do them.
Yeah.
So those are,
Like a garage, I'm getting ready to invest in a jet engine. See all the glass and all over there.
so I'm good unless anybody else has anything more to come.
Just one piece of information I'll share with you. Melissa and Nora Oswald let you know that we were eligible for $50,000 a year for 2 years through the American Relief Fund, Tribal Relief Act, or whatever it was. That money came in my possession yesterday, so it's actually here. So stay tuned. They'll be back with their.
I was gonna do it right now.
Ah.
Can't wait.
There you go.
Right?
I'd like to look into getting a sign, yes.
Does
We
it
have
come,
to
does
discuss.
it come back to committee or is it? We approved it in committee.
Well, she can, once she has your attention, she can ask now. but-
Right? Go ahead, Melissa.
Well, I thought the next step, which I wasn't really prepared for, the next step would be to get a small group of people together to actually look at signs, because apparently there's a wide variety of signs
Yes.
out there, right?
Yes.
Of electronic signs, which in the price varies, I guess, significantly. So that would be the next step. The vendor, someone that purchasing has spoken to would like to come in and just see what it is we're looking for, and then we can go.
Like a DOT sign that's in Washington County with the trailer, the wheels on it.
No.
It was like a stationary
I think we're
one.
like the
Cheapest one, wouldn't
It wouldn't be the cheapest. I don't know yet.
It could be,
Yeah, I don't know yet. Down that far.
All the above.
last time we talked, I had just put the application. I just want to let you know that it actually is here.
That's very.
James must know somebody in the sign business.
I do. I don't want to throw names out there on.
Right.
Yes, I mean, I've got companies that worked in both industries that I know.
So,
You got a great sign guy.
A couple.
You know, a guy.
I know a guy.
No,
my God.
no.
And fall.
What did you say?
So we use it.
So what, we're gonna bulldoze the
That's
building?
right, that's what I was saying, and Melissa, just.
Amazing how technically savvy they are about signs.
That's true. The grant money, that's what he was just referring to. Okay, so is there where you want to leave it for right now?
Yes.
Okay, we're done. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.